The following podcast is being brought to you by the Defy Life Podcast Network.
So, JD, for this edition of the Pro Wrestling Showdown podcast, we are going to be giving out some awards for the year 2020, a year that will definitely go down in the history books for a lot of different reasons. JD,
Live in infamy forever.
Yes, what are your overall thoughts on the year 2020 for professional wrestling?
2020 was a year that I saw more wrestling with nobody watching than a year than I ever care to again. It was weird, but it was, for better or worse, pro wrestling found a way to survive and in some cases thrive. I think the Far East, Japan, handled it better than we did for the most part. But on the whole, I saw a lot of good wrestling this year. I got, with things slowing down, I got introduced to a lot of good wrestling this year. Excuse me. I got introduced to a lot of good wrestling this year. Just before the show, I was watching a Japanese indie called Kyosho Pro. That they had an empty arena, just a match. They posted a match with their champion Genkai and a dude who I really like from All Japan by the name of Kuma Arashi. And it was a fun little match. I was like, hey, this is all right. So I tweeted it out. So, I don't think I do that if 2020 plays out like a normal year.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, to that point, I think, like Ring of Honor taking advantage of that and doing a pure title tournament was just a really good idea because that style works really well with the no fans environment. And I probably wouldn't have checked that out if it wasn't during this time when there's no fans. So it's why not check out another promotion because they're all an even playing field, really.
Kudos to Ring of Honor. I think they handled COVID the best. They shot in blocks, which really helped their show and didn't really need, they don't have an audience, so they could do that. And they created a true bubble similar to what the NBA did. So Ring of Honor gets a lot of credit.
Yeah, I agree. And they got over a new belt. And they really, a lot of people were talking about that. What they've done afterwards, they haven't really kept that buzz going, but they had a good amount of buzz with that belt. So yeah, they did a good job initially as far as creating something out of nothing.
Yeah, they did. It's hard when two of your major champions are gone. They lost the brothers. They lost Rush and Dragon Lee, and they kind of had to figure out what to do from there. And I think bringing back the Pure title was a great idea. I think those Pure matches played out really well in the empty arena setting. When they've gone to more traditional wrestling with the empty arena, I don't think it's worked quite as well. But the Pure stuff worked really well. Like, I think pushing Jonathan Gresham hard is the right move for them. Getting rid of Marty Scurll was the right move for them.
Definitely.
They're still a company in 2021 that's trying to find their identity. They still haven't quite recovered. What Cody Rhodes kind of did in 2019 was similar to like when Misawa left All Japan in 2000. Like he kind of took a bunch of the roster with him. So they've had to kind of reestablish who they are. And the giant break didn't help them at first, but I think in the long run it might be a benefit because now they have to figure out who they are in this new landscape. And I think they made some good steps. I would have pushed Shane Taylor over Brody King, but that's my personal thought. It's getting better.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I think they've done a good job of making, because they don't have other choice, of really elevating guys. Like I think Tracy Williams is another guy who's really benefited from this because I don't think he would have got this much attention and spotlight otherwise. So he's really benefited from this as well.
No, he's playing a similar role in the foundation that he played in the old Catch Point from Evolve when they had your Drew Gulak and your Matt Riddles and stuff like that out in Evolve, Thatcher. So he's found a comfort zone in a similar faction that I actually like more. I like the Foundation more than I like Catch Point, to be honest with you. So I think it's good for him. I like Tracy Williams. I think Ring of Honor, like I said, they're trying to figure out who they are again. I think bringing Matt Taven, I think bringing Mike Bennett back to work with Matt Taven is a smart move. They have great chemistry together. I think Mike Bennett's best stuff was in Ring of Honor with Taven. So, I think it's good. I think they still need to figure some things out, but they're trying stuff. I mean, they hired Danhausen, for God's sakes. I mean, they got a weird dude like that. That dude is a true indie sensation, but who really, I don't know how he quite fits in Ring of Honor, but I like that they're kind of going out and being a little different and experimenting with their format a bit. So kudos to them.
Definitely. So, this episode, we're gonna give out some awards. Little Wrestler of the Year, Match of the Year, Rookie Year, just your typical awards, and then we're gonna do Biggest Draw, Most Underutilized, Overexposed, just a couple of things, and maybe we'll make some up as we go. Who knows? This show just might go off the hinges. Who knows?
That's what we do.
That's exactly.
We're never on the hinges. So cool. Let's start. Let's get this going. How you feel? How you doing, man?
I'm doing really good. Actually, as the day of we're recording this, I just had a basketball game. A middle school team just picked up our first win of the year. We had about 5 games canceled because of COVID, so I'm just happy we were able to play a game, and extra thankful that we won a game. So it's a good day. The kids were very happy, so it's very, very good.
We, on that same token, in Illinois, we are shut down. I have not touched a wrestling mat since March.
I figure wrestling's probably a lot stricter with that than basketball is.
Everything is shut down here in Illinois.
Oh,
wow.
We
have no high school sports going on right now. Most schools are doing e-learning. We're down to 4,000 cases a day.
Well, that's good.
We were up around 7, 8, 9, 10 for a long time. So I just got an email today saying we're supposed to be able to start resuming stuff next week. That's going to be 0 to 60 kind of thing. So I'm curious to see if that's real. I'm looking forward to getting my vaccine, which hopefully is coming pretty soon, being a guy who works with kids in the state of Illinois. So I'm excited about that. Had 2 articles. I have 1 article. I don't know if you got to see my Randy Savage article in WrestleJoy.
Yes, another dime that you're dropping there.
Lunacy, my absolute lunacy of how Randy Savage was Macbeth. I'm particularly proud of that one. I just turned in today. I turned it in on Monday, actually, an article for Fight Game. And this is like my magnum opus. It's like 2,500 words. It's about how in 1989 Inoki brought in 5 Soviet Union wrestlers, like real amateur wrestlers, into their company. And most of them weren't great. One of them actually beat Vader for the IWGP title. Another one of them got popular. You played Street Fighter, right?
Oh, yeah.
As a kid?
Definitely.
Remember Zangief?
Yeah.
Based on a real dude, a guy who wrestled there named Victor Zangief. And I wrote his story because he's from a place called North Ossetia in the middle of Russia in the Caucasus Mountains. And I've got a friend who visits there every year with his wrestling team. So we go deep into why these specific guys went over there. And I talk about the Russian amateur wrestling system because it's the best in the world. And I really wrote something that was uniquely me. Like, it was really about how pro wrestling relates to amateur wrestling, and it's a very unique piece, and I'm very proud of it. It's going to be live officially tomorrow. As we record this on Tuesday night, so Wednesday morning it'll be live on Fight Game. And I don't know how it's going to go over with people, but I'm very excited having wrote it. I think it's the best thing I've ever written for wrestling stuff.
Well, if you think this is the best thing you've written, then I have no doubt this will go over very well, because all your other pieces have done very well as far as feedback I've seen. Yeah,
I'm riding a good high. I really am. Like I've got enough.
Milk
stuff.
it in, soak it in.
It's been going pretty good, but this is kind of like my magnum opus, because being an amateur wrestling guy who likes pro wrestling, like I watched this Victor Zangief guy wrestle Shinya Hashimoto because my buddy Justin recommended it while we were on the high tension pod. So I was watching it, and I'm like, I'm seeing this guy doing amateur wrestling moves in the Tokyo Dome, and I'm like, I love this man. I'm in love. I need to know more. And I fell into the story, and I'm like, oh my God, how has nobody really shared this before? So I stumbled onto something. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. I'm debating writing a book, on my first nonfiction book.
Wow.
About wrestling. So
that's cool.
Yeah, I think I'm getting pretty good at this stuff. And my buddy John LaRocca, the booker out there, he's like, hey man, he bounced some ideas off of me. So I think I got 2 or 3 ideas for some nonfiction books I can knock out. So we'll see where the year takes me.
I mean, you're not that busy anyway, so why not add a couple more things?
I know, that's my wife's like, are you sure? I'm like, hey, I need to get paid because the video business is dead. Long live being a writer.
Well, while you're doing that, tell everyone where they find you on your socials.
find me the best at JD_Oliva on Twitter if you want some. I mostly talk about wrestling and writing over there. I got a Facebook page, but that's mainly dedicated to my novels. So if you're into wrestling, that Twitter's the best place to follow me. How about you, man?
You can find me at Twitter at Knee for Marvel vs. DC. That's the number 4. I'm also on Facebook, Knee for Marvel vs. DC. You can find this show on that same feed. We're on all podcast platform. We are on Twitter at Showdown Pro. You can also follow us there as well. But you can download our podcast anywhere you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Radio Public. It is on the Take a Knee feed, so go ahead and subscribe there, and you'll get double your money for one click.
There you go.
Double your bang for one click. Let's jump right into our 3 count, JD. Well, let's go ahead and start out away from North America. What's going on? What's going on in the land of the rising sun?
Quiet, a little quiet. New Japan's running. New Japan's got some shows running. Mostly their house show tour circuit. They're doing right now. Their kind of focus is we're building up the United Empire, which is Will Ospreay's stable with Jeff Cobb, Great O'Khan, B. Priestley. I think that's it. That's all I'm thinking of at the moment. I think that's it. They should be one of the big things going on in the company. One of the more interesting rivalries they're building toward is Shingo Takagi and Hiroshi Tanahashi for that never open weight title. When that match happens, that is going to be a early in the year banger. And the big story dominating New Japan right now is what's up with Jay White. I think this is work. But Jay White kind of had a meltdown after losing in the Dome. Got pinned by Ishii the next night at I forget the blank of the show. New Year's Dash, sorry. Jeez, I'm a pro. And, so Jay White has kind of disappeared from New Japan right now, and there's a lot of speculation. Is he leaving New Japan? Is he going to wind up in WWE? Will he wind up in AEW? What's happening with the Switchblade? I personally think it's work, because they did the same thing with Kenny Omega when he lost to when he lost to Okada in the Dome in 2017. So I think that's kind of what we're happening right here. I think they're kind of replaying that. And I think Jay White comes back out of Bullet Club and more of a babyface role in New Japan. Yeah,
I don't see how New Japan can afford to lose Jay White. He's too good to let go. That's a foundation type guy. That's someone you build the company on. And I just can't see them letting him go.
Justin, my editor and co-host on High Tension, tells me he's got some sources in New Japan that say that Jay White is extremely influential backstage, especially with the New Japan Strong program, their American-based program. So you don't give a guy that kind of influence if you know he's headed out the door. So I don't know why he would, because he's like on the precipice of really being he's been a top guy, but he's on the precipice of being a top guy. So I don't see him going. And it's not like he's an American that wants to go home. He's from New Zealand. So, it's not like being in Japan is different than being in America for him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree.
And here's the thing about Jay White, too. He's their guy. Jay White learned to pro wrestle in the New Japan dojo. So it's not like he can't... Kenny Omega didn't even do that. He was the Canadian guy who came to the U.S. and got, did a cup of coffee in WWE's developmental and then showed up in DDT, and then was a Japanese freelancer who wound up in New Japan. You know what I'm saying? There's a path with Kenny Omega. Jay White was New Japan from day one.
Yeah, he's homegrown.
Yeah, he is their best homegrown non-Japanese guy.
Huh.
Non-Asian, we'll say.
Yeah, because I can't really think of anyone who even comes close.
No, Carl Fredericks could be in time, but as of right now, it's all Jay White. There's not even a close second.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone that comes close. But that's a great call. So to that, I don't think he goes anywhere. Briefly, New Japan. The Wrestle Kingdom results. Were you shocked by any of the results? You called God, and God did happen. He showed up at the end.
Right decision.
Were you surprised by any of the other results, though?
I thought the United Empire would go over stronger. They lost every match. Cobb and Shingo might have been my favorite match of both nights. God, did I love that match. Those guys have amazing chemistry. But Cobb wound up losing to Shingo. which I'm okay. I was okay with because I'm a big Shingo fan. But I thought for sure Ospreay was beating Okada. That didn't happen. And I thought for sure the Great Okan would beat Tanahashi. That didn't happen either. So, I mean, they went out really cold. And then, the next night they started getting hot. Now they murdered Tenzan, and now they're probably going to murder poor Kojima next. So that was about it. Like, as far as, like, surprises go, that's it. Like, I wrote an essay for the Voices of Wrestling New Japan book about how eventually GOD would get those titles back, and they did. I was like, I said this was going to happen right here in this book. #1 best-selling book on Amazon, too, in the wrestling category. Get that book from Voices of Wrestling.
Nice plug.
So that's got to make that money. Yeah, man. I mean, like, there's nothing other than that. There's nothing I was kind of like shocked over. I thought, especially in the main event, it played out the way I thought it would. Really good matches, man. There were some really good matches on this show.
Yeah, and I think Ibushi earned those titles. Sense. He earned those titles over those 2 nights.
They made him. And this was the surprising part about Ibushi, too, is usually New Japan will kind of drag their feet a little bit for a guy who isn't Trueborn, who isn't from the dojo system. And Ibushi came up in DDT and then freelanced for a while because, Kota. Here's the thing about Kota Ibushi. Kota Ibushi is independently wealthy. Like, his parents have money doing something. So he just wrestled. I don't know if you ever watch his DDT stuff. It's weird. Like, DDT wrestling is weird for American wrestling fans. And he, like, got shot with Roman candles and stuff like that just because.
Oh, my God.
Just because. I mean, like, because he's Kota Ibushi, man. He's just a weird dude, And they did that stuff with Kenny Omega, and he made himself a superstar. And then New Japan brought him in, and he really did kind of work his way up. Like 4 years ago, he was Tiger the Dog. I think he was working under the Black Tiger gimmick a little bit or something. I forget. They did have him in a mask for a little bit of time before he signed his contract. And to go from being a freelancer to being pushed solidly for 3 years. Because in 1 year he loses to Tanahashi in the G1. Then the next year he makes the finals of the G1 and loses. Then the next year he wins the G1 and loses in Wrestle Kingdom. And the next year he wins the G1 again and then wins. I mean, like, it was a steady 4-year climb to the top, which just goes, we talk about the Gato booking, man. I mean, like, they eyed this up and they built him perfectly for it.
Sprinkle in a couple IC title reigns in there too. Yeah, he's been protected pretty well.
For sure. And he's got, he's 38. Now was the time to really go. He don't look 38.
I was about to, he's 38.
Yeah, he's 38.
Wow.
Yeah, he looks fantastic. He's a little more beat up than people realize because he's been wrestling a very hard style. And if you watch Kota Ibushi, he loves to land on his neck. So, I mean, like, I hate to, you got to be careful with that. You don't wind up like Misawa or something like that. But, I mean, like, Kota looks fantastic. He's got, he calls himself a god. He certainly looks like a Greek god. He's carved out of stone. So, I mean, this is the time. Go with him. I don't know how long Kota Ibushi's reign on top of New Japan will last. I suspect it'll be just about this year, and then they'll move on to something else. But he's earned a spot, and this is his year.
Yeah, and I don't think another year of waiting on Kota Ibushi would have done him any service. So this was the right time to pull the trigger. I think this could be another year of them really kind of changing the guard as far as Will Ospreay. I think gets his win back sometime this year over Okada. And I think we get an Ospreay Ibushi title match. What happens with that, I don't know, but I think that's coming this year.
We sell out an arena. Is what happens when that happens.
No question. That's going to be a match of the year candidate. And if it's not, it's going to be a disappointment. No matter how great it is, if it's not a match of the year candidate.
I agree.
That's not fair either.
No, they've had matches before that have been pretty damn good, but I mean, like, it's always been in like a G1 situation where you have good matches, but there's like so many good matches in the G1 that it's hard to stand out, right? And it's built like that. Like, it's rare to get like the match of the year in the G1, So for them to have a situation to headline like a wrestling Dataku or like something like that is possible. I would like to see it headline a Wrestle Kingdom. We'll see what happens. I mean, like, Will Ospreay is funny. I thought Will Ospreay was doing really good as a heel, and my buddy John Laraka, who's wrestling booker out on the West Coast, he was critiquing. He's got such a good mind for the business. He was critiquing Will Ospreay's performance as a heel, and he was like putting some good points. Like, I want to see Will heel a little bit more. I want to see him stop playing to the crowd. I want to see him embrace the heel side a little bit more, and not be looking to the audience for like approval, because if you heel, you don't care. And I was like, yeah, it's a good point. Like, you're right. So we got to see Ospreay grow a little bit more into the heel role. And again, you don't have to be quite so over the top with it like you do in America, but it's going to help, especially being a foreigner. Like, being a gaijin in Japan, it doesn't take much to get him to turn on you.
Does he have the moveset to be a heel?
I don't know. That's the question. That's what he was saying. I don't think he has, John had a good point. He doesn't have to change his moveset necessarily. What he needs to do is stop pandering. Because Kenny Omega's got a babyface moveset, but I mean, he's a pretty good heel. Because Kenny, again, it's on AEW this week. When that big brawl happened, Kenny ran away. That's good heel stuff. Especially for an undersized guy.
Yeah.
You can do all that big, like Ric Flair did a bunch of cool stuff too. But I mean, like when push come to shove, you got to run a little bit. Same with Shawn Michaels. I think we're past the days where heels have to work a specific way. Like you can be an athletic heel. You just have to show some attitude, and like a disgusting attitude. And I think he needs to use B a little bit more. I think B is a great addition to what he does because she's a great heel. Like, they reminded me a little bit of what Brandy and Cody would do in New Japan, and I'd like to see them turn that up a little bit, because that was good stuff.
Yeah, it's still early. He's definitely still finding his groove. So yeah, they're gonna get more comfortable as it goes. And you know what? I think I agree with you. He doesn't have to change his moveset, but it would be nice to maybe after a move to kind of give a little arrogant grin instead of kind of looking fired up. Right.
Because Will Ospreay is a dickhead. So I mean, all he has to do is just tap into what he is.
Be himself.
Yeah, just be yourself. And I don't know how comfortable Will Ospreay is being himself. So he's got to really kind of grow up a little bit and find that little guy in him that doesn't give a shit what we think. That's really all it is. It's like, I don't want Will Ospreay to care about what me as a fan thinks. I want Will Ospreay to know he's the best in the world. And tell me you're the best in the world. Be like Ric Flair. Ric Flair had no problem telling you that.
That's true. Okay, so let's move on to our second count. The AEW Impact crossover is continuing. You tagged me in something very interesting. We are going to have a number one contenders match between.
We had it.
Well, as of this recording, it is already finished. Private Party versus Chris Sabin and James Storm.
Yes, James. First, this might have been the best Impact they've had in a long time. Like, they had a great segment with the Good Brothers, and because I guess Shelley's hurt, and they subbed out Shelley for Moose, which I was super critical of for the pay-per-view this past weekend. It turned out Moose had a star-making performance. So, kudos to Moose on that one. Way to take advantage of an opportunity. But certainly they're pushing this with one half of the guns out. They needed a guy, and they went to an Impact original. One of the best guys that's ever been in Impact. A guy who doesn't have any history with WWE. They went to the Cowboy. And
he's got a little NXT. He's got a little NXT. He had a coffee.
Two matches.
He had a coffee. He definitely had a coffee.
Two squash matches in NXT. But yeah, you are correct. But yeah, Storm belongs in Impact. Like, I mean, even seeing him in NWA last year was kind of like, it just didn't fit right to me. Like, he's an Impact guy, and like seeing him and Chris Sabin together was intriguing, and then seeing Private Party and Matt Hardy come out and challenge him was even more intriguing. Why James Storm and Private Party 2, three guys who have not been in the company until 10 minutes ago, were in a number one contenders match makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah, well, that's okay.
I know, pro wrestling.
Yeah, it's pro wrestling.
Wrestling.
It is what it is.
Whatever, fine. They could have just said, because Tony Khan was there. And actually, Tony Khan and Jerry Lynn interfered in the match. So they're going with AEW as being heels on the Impact show, which I like.
Yeah, see, I was going to say, that's the way to do it. That's what they need to be. They need to be heels on Impact, and then when you come home, you're the baby faces at home. It's just like a road team and an away team, or a home
Bret
team.
Hart.
Yes.
Bret Hart in 1997.
Or Shawn Michaels in Canada for his his last 10 years.
Oh, that's true. That is a good point. Shawn Michaels for the last decade, yes.
Yeah.
Anytime after 1997 was Shawn Michaels. Yeah, but no, Bret in 97 is the best example. In the U.S., he was hated. In Canada, he was loved. And they played it accordingly. And, like, that's the best way to be. Like, Tony is a petulant little prick in Impact, and he's, like, everyone's best friend in AEW. And it makes perfect sense, too,
Tony Schiavone, too.
Tony Schiavone's great because Tony Schiavone is a sarcastic dickhead. So I mean, like it just works. This is what we were talking about months ago when this whole thing kind of, or it's only been a month and a half, when this thing first raised the hand. I suggested a team like a Private Party that needs more experience to come work Impact. I did not think they'd be number one contenders on their first night, but Impact gonna Impact.
And
So,
two good guys to work with as well. Two tag team specialists to work with as well.
No, yes, exactly, because James Storm had those great team, the America's Most Wanted with Chris Harris, and then Beer Money with Bobby Roode. James Storm, great tag team wrestler.
Yep.
So, and then him and Chris Sabin, of course, legend with the Motor City Machine Guns. Fantastic stuff. And I didn't get to watch the whole match. I was just following on Twitter, but it looked good. Like it stayed in the story. You know, we're going to keep pushing this Impact AEW thing. I don't know where it ends or where it goes. It was nice to see AEW acknowledge it on their show last 2 weeks with Gallows and Anderson coming out. I don't know where it goes from here, but if you look at, let's talk about this real quick. What do you think of Kenny Omega pinning Rich Swann immediately in that 6-man tag match? That's a controversial decision.
I mean, Chris Sabin was right there. That's where I'm at, because I don't see Rich Swann getting this win back. I don't see him pinning Kenny Omega while he is champ and getting this win back. I'm even scared to say if it's for the Impact title. I could see Kenny winning that title. So
did you see the graphic for their next pay-per-view?
No, I didn't.
It's a golden star with an Omega in the center. Rebellion. That is literally what it is. There's a giant golden star with an Omega symbol.
He's challenging for that belt. Now, I will say this. Because you did bring up Moose, and I'm glad you brought that up, because he did have a star-making performance. If this is maybe to build up to a Moose confrontation, because I know he no-sold one of those V-triggers, and nobody does that to Kenny Omega.
No, I like that. And they also did a little thing where they keep pushing the main focus of the Impact show being Moose versus Rich Swann. You know, Moose has got that TNA belt, Swann's got that, the Impact belt, the Rio belt. So they're doing this, and Kenny Omega looms over the show. Like he wasn't on this week, but I don't think it's over. Like, you don't intentionally slap that Omega symbol onto a logo without saying what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's one of those things where if I had faith that Rich Swann would get this win back, I would be all for Kenny Omega pinning him, because AEW has shown that they're better at doing long-term storytelling, as far as they're not going to forget something.
Better than Impact, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, no question. No question.
Yeah.
So
here's the thing,
I'm not sure if he's going to get that win back. I guess that's really kind of my only hang-up with him beating Swann.
50-50. I think it's better for Impact if Kenny Omega has that title. I really do. But there's a couple things that give me hope that maybe Swann does win this match. One, the belt collector gimmick has only been referenced on Impact TV. AEW TV has not referenced it. They did reference it in AAA, but nowhere up. That's it. It hasn't been said on AEW. So Kenny has not said that. So it's possible Kenny loses to Swann, and then that's the end of it. I think it's better if Kenny takes both the TNA belt and the Impact belt and brings them with the AAA belt and shows up on Dynamite with all four of them. Like I said, I think best business is having Kenny Omega looking like the Ultimo Dragon circa 1996. Just cover the man in belts. Because again, that's unique in this day and age. And it wasn't like Austin Aries when he was winning a bunch of joke indie belts and bringing them on Impact. No,
that's true. And then you could easily, Tony Khan could do something like, or make him defend all the titles in the same night, so then he has an out for why he ends up losing three of the 4 belts. Yeah.
When you want to take the belts off of him, you could do that. You could bring Swann in that night, and then Swann could get his win back that way. I mean, it's hard. That's a hard thing to negotiate. In my perfect world, it builds to Kenny Omega versus Kota Ibushi. That's what I would like to see. Now again,
wow.
That's what I want to see, because that's
a headlining, potentially industry changing match.
It is, and New Japan and AEW have to get along, and it doesn't look like they are. But I mean, on Impact, they're calling them the Bullet Club. I mean, and Tama Tonga is like, there's this line in Shakespeare that, it's me think he doth protest too much, meaning that, this guy sure is acting angry. Is he acting so angry that he's playing angry? So, because Tama Tonga is on Facebook or on Twitter talking shit all the time about these guys, not real Bullet Club, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know, man. Because this is the money match. Like, if you want to go back to Madison Square Garden, if New Japan wants to go back to Madison Square Garden at some point when, COVID restrictions lift, the headline main event to make sure you have a sellout is Kota Ibushi versus Kenny Omega, the Golden Explosion.
Kota holding his 2 belts, Kenny Omega having 3 belts, possibly 4 belts.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, that would be the biggest possible match outside of the WWE circle.
Visually, that would, like, just that image of them holding the belts face to face would just be one of the most. That would be a historic image. That would just be incredible.
It would. It takes a lot of cooperation. Like, I'm sure, like, Scott D'Amore and Don Callis were like, whatever, if we get to be involved, I'm cool. Like, you got to get Kadani with New Japan and Tony Khan on the same page. I know Tony Khan would like to be. It's getting New Japan to do stuff, and they can drag their feet with things, But I mean, they forgave WCW, and they vowed never to do business with WCW after Bill Watts. And Eric Bischoff talked them into doing business again, and they did a lot of good business together. So that's a different regime. That's like 2 owners ago, but I think it's possible. And I think, like, because New Japan wants to tour here, and if they want to, they sold out Madison Square Garden with Ring of Honor, but when they were selling tickets, that was before AEW. People thought that we were going to get the elite guys on those shows, and instead we got Matt Taven. No offense to Matt Taven, but I mean, Matt Taven and Kenny Omega.
No, he's not.
So I mean, like, if you want something, if you want to go, like, if you want to put on, if you want to sell, here's the thing: if New Japan wants to sell out Madison Square Garden in a non-WrestleMania weekend, they got to go big. They need something like that. AEW, same thing. If AEW wants to do a New York City show and they want to sell it out, that's what they need. Because you don't have that. You don't have that WWF or listen to my age, that WWE machine you can lean back on,
And AEW does only have a few real, like, main events that they could put on that you could be like, wow, I really can't miss this match, And besides, like Cody and Mox, I don't know if they have any real ones left.
Maybe Cody and Kenny, which we've seen that. That's a good one too. We saw that in New Japan, and that Cody is a very different character than he was then, and so is Kenny now. So that's one. That's another. That's like it. And to be fair, they haven't given them to us yet. They're still saving those. And there's a lot of juice left in the Moxley Omega feud, which is good. I want to see a war. What do they call War Games Blood and Guts match?
I'd like to see a straight up wrestling match.
Oh, I would too. But I just want to see Moxley tagging with like Private Party against.
Oh yeah, that would be bad.
I want to see something like that in a cage. Like give me a nice gimmick match at some point. Like entertain me with something crazy. Give me James Storm with John Moxley in a cage. You know what I'm saying? Like do something.
Those are 2 characters who would get along really well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I thought. Like that would be really good. Like give me a hybrid AEW Impact team versus this American Bullet Club. Entertain me. Rich Swann. Oh yeah, dude. Moxley, Swan. Storm,
Willie Mack. I think Willie Mack would fit in in with him.
Willie Mack, Darby. Like I'm saying, give me something different. That's all I want. That's what we need. That's the only way that AEW can like really stand out from WWE, and they're doing that. Like they have the NWA Women's Champion on their show. Kenny Omega is the AAA Mega Champion. Like they are open. Like people from other it's crazy. The other night on Dynamite, you had champions from NWA, champions from AAA, champions from Impact. Like you've got guys from all over the place being represented on Dynamite, which is cool. It's like WCW used to be the same way when they had guys from New Japan and AAA showing up with their titles.
It's a super indie show on a major level. It is very different. It's something you don't see.
That's what I want to see. I want to see All In with like real money behind it, because All In it was a super indie show. Like you had Ring of Honor, and NWA, New Japan, and then just straight up indie guys, Lucha Underground. Like they had a little bit of representation from everywhere on that first All In show. Like if you're gonna go big, if you want to go a big arena or a stadium, like if you're gonna like say, hey, it's all of us versus WWE, which is the best path to play on, is like because not one of them can like compete, but I mean together they can compete. That's what
definitely.
you need. Like that's the only way it's going to be. Yeah, does it going to work? I don't know. Will it entertain me? Yes, that's all I care about.
And I'm surprised some of these smaller, if the offer's been out there, and I'm sure that it has to be with the way the storyline's been going, but I'm surprised some of these smaller companies, even like a Ring of Honor, aren't really trying to jump on the bandwagon with this, because I feel like this is the type of thing that would give them the extra buzz they need. Like, this would be a perfect reason for Foundation to show and be like, hey, don't forget about us. We're the foundation of Ring of Honor. You know what I mean?
As much as I would enjoy Roosh versus Kenny Omega, I think Kenny Omega could get a good match out of Roosh. I don't know if Sinclair's interested in doing that, to be honest with you, because they weren't interested in doing it the first time. You know what I'm saying?
Man, I don't get that. I just don't. I don't understand why it's not appealing to them, or at least just to send a few of your guys.
Why don't they care enough? I don't know. I just don't. I think they're very happy with what Ring of Honor is. It's an hour of TV that they can put on all their networks. You know, I just think that's all I think that's all Ring of Honor is to Sinclair, which I think is why we have an AEW, because all those guys were in Ring of Honor.
That's a shame, because like I'd love to see Jay Lethal have a nice little run. Like, this is kind of where your love for the territories. I would love to see some of that come back. Like, see Jay Lethal go to AEW for 6 months. You know, the Briscoe brothers go to AEW for 6 months, and they come back to Ring of Honor. They feel like a brand new character.
That's what I've been proposing, is like this, and this is why the territories worked so well. Is because when guys got stale, you just put them somewhere else, and they could come back fresh, or they could stay, or they could do whatever. And there was like, you know, you can go to Florida, then go work up in Alabama, Pensacola, then go out to Georgia, then go into Oklahoma. Like, there was like just right there was 5 different territories where you could be fresh everywhere you went and make money. The territory system had in a lot of ways it was better. In a lot of ways it wasn't, because like, you know, some of the smaller territories didn't make as much money, and like a lot of the guys who owned them weren't very savvy businessmen, which is the real problem. People are like, oh, Vince put all the territories out of business. And it's like, well, most of these territories were owned by guys in their 70s, and the rest of them didn't have any money because they didn't really know. Like, they were just wrestlers. You know, they weren't like business people. You know, the guys that were business people did well. You know, Crockett was hurting, but I mean, he sold his business. Watts was hurting, but he sold his business. You know, Don Owen was in business till the day he retired. Like, they didn't put Don Owen in Portland out of business. You know, like a lot of those guys either died or retired, or they refused, like Gagne, who refused to change. You know, that's why I maintain that's a big reason why Vince won that war. It's because he was 40 and everybody else was 75, and the 75-year-old just ain't as hungry as a 40-year-old.
It's kind of how history repeats itself right now.
Yeah, it could be. See, no, Vince
is still hungry, but
yeah, Vince. Yeah, he's a different human being, and he's also he's a good wrestling businessman. Like, everything else he tries kind of fails, but I mean, as far as wrestling goes, you can't fight with it that he's been successful. You know, like I don't like the WWF as a product and as a company, but I can't sit there and tell you, well, you know, they're a failure. Like, the World Bodybuilding Federation was a failure. The XFL was a 2-time failure.
Yeah, I don't know about the second time. Well, it wasn't their fault.
It wasn't doing great.
It wasn't doing great. It was not doing great. But I think there was a life there. That second go round. I do think there was life there.
We'll never know for sure.
No.
The Rock. I think it has better potential with The Rock running it than it does with Vince McMahon.
Oh, no question. No question.
I think The Rock is a little more savvy today. Did you see that thing they put out with Vince McMahon and Oliver Luck's text messages, where Vince actually, he texts like a 12-year-old, like he writes U and R with a U and an R, and like a 4, like he writes like Prince when he texts. And then he actually, you know, he told, this is great, I don't know if you saw this, he told Oliver Luck that there was, in all caps, no chance in hell Johnny Manziel plays in the XFL. And I'm like, oh my God, he actually is Mr. McMahon. Like,
that's ridiculous that he's texting ridiculous. Like that. That is absolutely ridiculous.
He's not even a grown man. He's an old man doing that. It's mind-boggling.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Like, it just, one thing I'd say is that dude is a freaking character. And
he pops himself when he does stuff like that. He definitely pops himself.
For sure. You know, as much as I dislike him, and for so many reasons, the wrestling world will be a worse place for a while when he's gone, because he will leave such a vacuum.
It is going to be a big empty space when he's gone, just on so many levels. It's going to be an empty space. It's going to be very different.
It is. And I'm not planning on his death, but, you know, Getting old.
Yeah, of course.
Man, it's getting old. So yeah, that's back to the roundabout. I think this AEW Impact thing is finally starting to, because it dragged for a little bit. I think the Brody Lee death worked, exacerbated it a bit too. But I think it took a little while for it to get going. And because I tuned into those first few Impacts when Omega showed up, and man, it was a hard watch. I was not as entertained. This week, with what I'm seeing, I was a little bit more entertained. They got rid of some stupid storytelling. They finished the Who Killed Johnny Bravo or whatever story, and then they brought in James Storm, and they had stuff with Private Party. And this is what I want to see. So hopefully they're steering more into what they're actually good at rather than just throwing shit at the wall and see what sticks.
Well, it's Impact, so it's definitely a wait and see. It's definitely a wait and see thing with Impact.
I have no faith. I mean, it says a lot to me that Tony Khan's been in this business a year and a half, and I feel like he's already more successful than the 20 years of Impact.
I mean, are you wrong?
No, I don't think I am.
Are you wrong? So
there's people that'll fight me on it and be like, "No, Impact's been really good at surviving."
And there's something to that. There's something to that.
There is. Absolutely. They've lasted double. Yeah, it's like twice as long as ECW and longer than WCW. I mean, who would have thought that? But, they're always hanging on by a string. And I don't feel like AEW is hanging on by a string.
No, I have to admit they've had a very solid year. For our third count, I actually wanted to throw a little curveball at you, JD. Give me a random belt for everyone to go check out.
Oh shoot! Okay, so just today, I mentioned my buddy John LaRocca before, my co-host on the Take a Knee. I'm not taking a Knee. God, I keep giving your show away. On the High Tension.
Shout out to Take a Knee from Over DC podcast.
One of the best comic podcasts in the game.
I appreciate that.
So I am going to give you something to look at right now, and I'm curious because my buddy John gave me this book to read, and I'm always looking for some good nonfiction in the course of wrestling, and I know nothing about this. So I'm just, that's to John. He's going to wonder why I sent him the same text he sent me. So I'm sending this to you in the chat right now. This is this is a book about the Missouri State Championship. So check this out real quick. Go click that. And while you're looking at that, I'm going to talk to you about Missouri. Sam Mushnick was the president of the NWA toward the end of, not even toward the end, for the majority, for a good chunk of its existence. Sam Mushnick was the president of the NWA. This is back when the NWA was like a group of territories working together. Mushnick oftentimes quelled problems between promoters. Because this whole idea that Vince McMahon was the first person to promote outside his territory is BS. This was happening all the time and so often that they had to have fights about it and had to have a mediator constantly. And that was literally what Sam Mushnick did for the most part, is he just tried to make people happy. But he also had his own promotion, and it was in St. Louis, right? And St. Louis wasn't a territory in that, in what we think of it. Like St. Louis, what they did was he would hold these big cards, and he would bring in guys that were from the best of the territories, right? So on an episode of Wrestling at the Chase was the show, because they'd have matches from the Chase Hotel. In the 50s, they would have it was crazy. In the 50s, they would have this fine dining with a wrestling ring in the center. You'd have people dressed like you think of fancy dress in the 50s, like women with white gloves eating Chateaubriand, watching pro wrestling. Crazy. And that was a TV show. Oh, crazy, but it worked and it drew. And St. Louis was a big promotion and it worked. And all they did was just bring in guys. So I mean, there wasn't and it wasn't like they went around the horn. He just produced stuff in St. Louis. And it drew. It drew really well. But the good thing was he was a no frills, no gimmick kind of guy. So they have if you look on YouTube, there's stuff like Hulk Hogan coming into St. Louis pre-WWF, mind you. And he would come in and he was working more of his Japanese style match, where it wasn't just the typical Hogan match. Because in St. Louis, it was expected that you went out there and you wrestled. Right. And that's what drew. That's what people in St. Louis expected. And the belt I showed you that you might be looking at right now is the Missouri State title. And that was the top title of the St. Louis territory, led by Sam Mushnick. And this promotion went out of business in 1983, and I'll tell you the story about that in a second. But that's what the Missouri State title looked like. And like, if you look at this, like, it was held. This is the guys that held it: Kevin Von Erich, Ted DiBiase, Jerry Briscoe, Bob Backlund, Ric Flair, Dory Funk Jr., Terry Funk, Harley Race. Like, this is good stuff. Like, these are really good guys. Like, and this belt in particular lasted from 72 to probably, I want to say 83, maybe 82, 83. I forget off the top of my head. And like that was like the center. It was literally St. Louis, the center of the U.S. And it was a great in-between spot for guys that were traveling the territories. You come in, you work St. Louis, make some good money with Sam Mushnick, and then you move on, do something else.
I like the black strap. That blue is very jarring. It hits you as soon as you see it.
It's striking.
Yeah. I don't know about the blue. I like the black strap, though.
Yeah, 70s belts had a different look than 80s belts, right? Like in the style of belts of the 80s, you have the giant front piece. I almost call it a buckle, but it's on the opposite side of the belt. So it's technically a buckle, but it isn't a buckle. Like, it's that front piece. Like in the 80s, those things got pretty big, right? But in the 70s, they tended to be kind of smaller, right? And this design was like, I look at this design here and I kind of see Impact, like what their belts look like. There's a lot of that going on in this.
I see that. Now that you say that, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, I see a lot of like the Impact style.
Especially the shape of them.
Yeah, the shape. That's kind of what I'm talking about, like the shape of it. The blue is crazy. But again, in the 70s, you saw more of that. Like, you saw more paint on the belts. In the 80s, everything was just kind of gold, and then they would go like blue for like the water and like the globe. Or like that NWA belt had the NWA TV title had some red, which is actually what LaRocca proposed to me. He thinks we should do a book on the NWA TV title. I think that's a pretty good idea. But yeah, I'm gonna get a copy of this book. The Strap, it's called. Complete History of Sam Mushnick's Missouri State Championship by Roger Dean. Very cool. Very, very cool. So, I was wrong. St. Louis Wrestling Club. Okay, yeah, the St. Louis Wrestling Club dies, which is the name of the territory of St. Louis Wrestling Club, dies in 87. The show, Wrestling from the Chase, was sold to WWF in 1983. Here's what's crazy. 1983, this is one of the last weeks in 1983. The WWF is starting to tape from St. Louis. Right, St. Louis is one of the first, because they talk about, Vince bought all the territories. He didn't. He bought St. Louis and he bought L.A. So that was like kind of the links. And he bought St. Louis first. So he's in St. Louis, and they're doing an angle in St. Louis right away where Bob Backlund is attacked by the Samoans. And like, he disappears, and he's going to have a mystery tag team partner match. And it's one of the first times this is done on WWF TV. So Backlund's in there with the Samoans, and then Backlund literally runs to the back and shows up with Hulk Hogan. And that's Hulk Hogan's return to WWF.
Oh, wow.
Was in St. Louis. And the crowd goes batshit. Because they all know, like, at the time, Hogan had left the AWA a week earlier. A week. Like, they just did a dusty finish with him and Bockwinkel for like the 5th time with the AWA World Title, right? So as far as everybody knows, Hogan is an AWA guy, but in Missouri, guys come in and out all the time, right? So that crowd in St. Louis is educated to who everybody is. So Hogan shows up and they go crazy. They know this is Hulk Hogan, not only the guy fighting Nick Bockwinkel, but they know him from Rocky, right? And that's it. Hulkamania starts right there. Like, everyone will go back to the Madison Square Garden match with Hogan and the Sheik, but like, it really starts here. This is his return, and he returns with Backlund when Backlund is still the champion. I want to say Backlund is still the champion at this point. Yeah, because then Backlund loses to the Sheik, and then Backlund can't do the rematch, and because Backlund and Hogan are friends now, Backlund tells Hogan to take the match for him, and then Hogan wins the title.
It's not a bad storyline right there.
No, here's what would have been great, and this is what McMahon wanted to do, is after that, McMahon planned, this is what he wanted. He wanted Backlund to turn on Hogan and become a heel. And Backlund said no way, and he left. Because he was the champ for 5 years in WWE. He was champ from 78 to 83. And he's a very much, if you ever see Backlund stuff from that era, like in the 70s, he stands out. Like in the 70s, he stands out like a throwback from the 50s. It's weird. But like overnight, that promotion just changes. And McMahon's idea was to turn Backlund on Hogan. It would have done killer box office, but Backlund didn't want to do it. And he was gone from pro wrestling. He does a little bit of stuff in 85, but he's gone till 93 when he comes back to WWF. And like he's back doing Bob Backlund stuff, and he's booed. Like for over a year, he's booed everywhere he goes as this, super white bread baby face that just people didn't want to see in the mid 90s. And then McMahon talked him into it, and he does that heel turn with Bret Hart where he loses his freaking mind and becomes the Mr. Backlund character. Because Bob Backlund's kind of a weird guy in real life. And the Mr. Backlund character is a lot closer to real Bob Backlund than like the guy he played on TV. So if I'm telling you right now, if Backlund does that with Hogan in 84, that's killer box office. Killer.
So he left a lot of money on the table.
Yes, he did. But he had made a lot too. Because he was a WWF champion from 78 to like 83, and he made money. Like he's working with Superstar Graham. He's working, I think he did stuff with Dusty too. Like he did stuff with that. Everybody come in. Backlund was making a lot of money. So I mean, it's not like he was hurting by any stretch of the imagination. But this would have made him a fortune. Because right when Hogan takes the title is when they go into California, and then they start really like invading territories and doing all that stuff. And that's like, there's no real good creative that first year when Hulk Hogan is the champion. Like they're just selling, hey, come see Hulk Hogan. And he has no real rival. Like he has no program, it's just see Hogan beat the Sheik, see Hogan beat John Studd, see Hogan beat Paul Orndorff before they really had a problem. It's not until Piper in 85 that Hogan has like what we would consider like a true program. Like if you watch those WWF shows from like, when they start getting big, it's just wrestling matches. There's not much for angles. The only guy really doing angles is Piper. Like the hottest program in 84 is Piper Snuka.
That could have been Backlund for a couple of years.
Could have been Backlund. Backlund could have made a lot of money. He left it on the table. And like, so the first like Hogan's the first like opponent he makes money with, where like they make money like as like, okay, I want to see Hulk Hogan beat this guy up because I hate him, is Piper. And then like he later does stuff he does good business with Bundy, he does good business with Orndorff, he does good business with Kamal. Like Hogan made money with everybody. But that with Backlund, man, that could have been something, especially in the Northeast where Backlund had that reputation. It probably wouldn't have drawn in like Chicago or LA because Backlund didn't mean anything there. But in New York, Pennsylvania, it would have killed.
Well, I'm definitely going to put the Missouri State Championship up when I put this show out onto the show notes so everybody can see this title. Again, it's got the black strap, big blue center, very blue, very bright, big chest, big kind of a buckle piece, and then you got big side plates on the sides. Very interesting. Does have an impact feel to it. Very, very good call on this belt, JD.
Yeah, well, you threw this for me. You did not prepare me for this. So I appreciate it. And like had John not thrown me that book today, I would not have had this idea. So that worked out pretty well.
It did work out well. I don't tend to be able to catch you off guard very often, so I thought I might be able to catch you slipping today.
I would have pulled something out, but I mean, like I'm glad I had this particular one because I had never really seen this belt till today. To be honest, I never really took a look at it till today.
Well, I would definitely put this up again. I really do like the black, though. I think more. I like the black. I don't know why, but the black strap
looks good.
Maybe the blue makes the black look better.
Could be. I'm not a fashion guy. I'm a t-shirt and jeans guy, so I cannot tell anyone what looks good. But I think I do like the way this belt looks. It's composed really well, and I really like black belts. Yeah, me too. Like I think they look better. Like I know there's a thing right now where like, especially with WWE making the belts the different colors, which for me I'll always associate with Ultimate Warrior and Shawn Michaels because they did that. But I love the look of a black belt. Yeah,
the classic is always the best.
Yeah.
Okay, let's give some awards out.
Let's do it. You call them out.
Okay, let's call them out. Let's do breakout of the year. JD, who do you have for your breakout of the year?
So we should preface this is like I don't watch WWE, so if I don't give something a WWE thing, it's not because I hate the company or nothing like that or I hate the talent. I'm not watching. So all my stuff is going to be non-WWE. So my breakout talent of the year is going to be John Silver.
Oh, okay.
I can't think of somebody that made a bigger, not a bigger splash, but like a more exponential splash from where he started out. Because like the Beaver Boys were just enhancement talent on AEW, right? And they got sucked into the Dark Order before it really worked, and the Brody Lee came along, and then John Silver, on being the Elite, really let his personality shine. And then he really got over with that AEW internet crowd, and it really bled into Dynamite to the point where, in the wake of Brody Lee, and now that they're doing stuff with Hangman Page, like John Silver has really gotten some shine on the show, and he's really taken advantage of it. Like I can't think of a guy who's made a bigger like swing from where he started the year to where he ended the year.
Okay. I'm also going to stick with AEW, and I'm going with Darby Allin.
Big one.
I think he really established himself as a main event player. They've done a good job of keeping the TNT title at a main event level, and they've done a good job with him as far as making his rise organic and making him very believable. He takes a beating, but he's always getting back up. He to me is probably the best. They've done the best job with Darby Allin out of anybody from the beginning to where he is right now. I think out of anybody in AEW.
From guys that didn't have a big following beforehand, because Darby had a little bit of a cult following from his Evolve stuff. But I mean, like, if you weren't paying attention to Evolve, which most people weren't, you didn't know who Darby Allin was when he showed up in AEW in the summer of 19, right? And then this year has definitely been the story of his rise to the point where he's coming out with Sting every week. Like, they brought Sting in for the idea of kind of anointing Darby the next Sting. Like, how crazy is that?
It's a big deal.
Heck yeah.
It's a big deal, man. And so I expect big things from he to me is a foundation guy. You know, he's somebody you build a company on because he's got it. He's got that Jeff Hardy factor. You know, there's something about them where you can't take your eyes off him.
He works like Ricky Morton because he's small and he's really good at taking a beating, but he's got this like dark Jeff Hardy style charisma, you know. But the broodiness of like the Crow Sting, like he's this weird hodgepodge of all those guys, and it really works to make him something unique. And there's not enough unique in wrestling. Darby Allin is that. He's unique.
Definitely. Let's go next to overexposed. Who was the most overexposed wrestler for you last year?
Maxwell Jacob Friedman.
Wow. You just said this at the beginning of 2020, I would have been no way. There's no way he'll be overexposed. He'll be at the top of the card. But looking back at it, you might be on some, JD.
We were going to have the same answer, I think, so I had to be a little different because I know where you're going with this one, and I agree with you. But I think with MJF, I think in the last month he's made a turn back for good stuff. But when MJF had, because I really enjoyed his match with Jungle Boy, I thought it was the best wrestling match he's had in a long time, or probably all year, to be honest with you. As far as like a pure wrestling match goes, I really liked that match. And then he got his main event push with Jon Moxley over the summer, and I hated every minute of it. And you know, I'm a huge Jon Moxley fan, and it was like watching those segments every week was painful. It's painful. Like watching him, and like I saw Bleacher Report nominated that for promo of the year, and I wanted to throw my phone out the window when I saw that. Like the whole Dictator John, he's lying on his back, acting like Jon Moxley's Hulk Hogan. Like everything about that reeked to me of the stuff I don't like about WWE, like the worst of it. But like when people try to impersonate WWE, it always comes out like a lot worse, you know.
It definitely had a WWE light feel to it, and that's what you don't want.
Right. WWE light always comes off worse than WWE. Right? And especially when you're telling me you're going to be the the alternative. I've never been more down on AEW than I was like with that feud, and I was so like disappointed. People tell me, "Oh, it's time. They got to put the title on MJF. They got to take it off Moxley." And I was like, "Are you insane? Are you people? Do you people hear what you're saying? This is terrible. This is bad TV every week." And like I was ecstatic when it was done. That being said, since he's joined Inner Circle, a group that I'm kind of over in and of itself, I think he's been the most interesting part of it. We're seeing more character development. Like I think he's doing a better job convincing Inner Circle he's on his side than he did with Cody when he was pulling that whole role. So I think he has grown as a performer a little bit, but the early half of the year, MJF really got me tired of him.
So
I can't wait. Go, please.
I had somebody else ready because I thought you might have picked who my number one guy was.
Oh,
I had a number two ready as well, just in case this happened as well. Jericho is.
Oh God, yes.
I mean,
that's the real answer.
He's on TV way too much. He's just doing way too much. He's on social media way too much. He's just everywhere way too much.
You know who's handled the pandemic really poorly? Chris Jericho.
Oh my gosh.
Like in every aspect. Like there's nothing he couldn't screw up more. Like yeah, for a guy who had such a dynamic 2019, like arguably a wrestler of the year and everything but in ring stuff. But
he had some good in ring matches in 2019.
He did, but I mean like not enough to me to call him wrestler of the year.
Oh, right.
He did have some good ones. But this year, yeah.
It's been a rough
super
one.
spreader. The super, I don't know what's worse. Like the Donald Trump Jr. on his he put Donald Trump Jr. on his show. Then he put a COVID denier on his show. After it turns out he had COVID, which he probably caught from doing a concert in Sturgis, where 250,000 people got COVID.
Yep.
I mean, like, holy Jesus! On the top of being annoying on TV every week, like yeah, man, I'm so over Chris Jericho right now. And he was one of my all-time favorite wrestlers for us. Oh, and then on election night, he has to tweet the Donald Trump crap of, isn't this weird? The president was winning when he went to bed, and then he was losing. It's like, yes, it's amazing. When you count the votes, things change. Like, that whole thing made, oh my God.
Yeah, his everything he did outside of the ring just made everything he does inside the ring just seem so much worse, probably.
Well, I think this is the year that I think Chris Jericho's too fat, to be honest with you. Like, I think he's gained too much weight to the point where it's really affected
and he can't
his
move.
Performance.
He blows up.
No.
You can tell. You can see it.
Yeah. This is the worst year in ring he's ever had. He's looked really bad this year. People are like, well, he's 50. And I'm like, bro, Takashi Sugiura and Noah is older than him, and he's ripped and awesome. So don't give me that. I'm going to watch Keiji Muto challenge Go Shiozaki in February. Keiji Muto is chubby, can't move, and he will have a better match with Go Shiozaki than anything Chris Jericho's done this year. Like, that's not an excuse. Like, he's unmotivated. I don't know if he's unmotivated, but he's definitely out of shape, and he's definitely thrown it into neutral in 2020, and it's not been fun to see.
No, it hasn't. My backup choice was Evil.
Yeah, I think that's a good one too. You know, I think New Japan kind of eased off the gas with Evil because it didn't go as well as they had thought. Like, I know they were trying to do something with LAJ and come out. They were trying to come out of the pandemic, and I don't know. I think Evil is going to go down with, like, you know, some of the, like, Josh Barnett and some of the guys are like, that dude was IWGP champion once. Like, yeah.
Or Scott Norton.
Well, Scott Norton was awesome.
Was he? Oh, see, I don't.
Yes.
I just his name as a champ, as a like that in that prestigious line, just seems very odd to me from what I've seen of him in America.
Because here he was pushed as a mid card guy. Like, that's true. In Japan, he was pushed like a monster, and he was. Scott Norton's Japanese work was great, and like in an era where, you know, they wanted big burly dudes, like, because he followed up like Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow and like those type of guys. Scott Norton was the next, you know, monster gaijin. And his New Japan work was far superior to his WCW work. And it's because he couldn't cut a promo. You know, Scott Norton wasn't a great promo. He was really good in ring.
Okay. Well, bad example on my end. But Yeah, so Evil would have been my pick for the overexposed. Let's go to Rookie of the Year. I know you wanted to do Breakout and Rookie of the Year, so who do you have for Rookie of the Year?
SB Kento. He's a guy from Dragon Gate who made his professional wrestling debut earlier this year, Kento Kabune. And the Dragon Gate right now is under a youth revolution. Like, you have guys like Koto Minoura, who are 21. You have Hip Hop Kakuta, who is 19. SB Kento is 20 years old. And he started out the year doing some, nice things. By November, he had turned heel, became SB Kento, joined the RED stable, like the top heel faction in Dragon Gate. And then I think I told you about this before. In Dragon Gate's Final Gate show, they had this generational war final match where you had the Toryumon guys, who these were dudes that are all in their 40s and 50s. So these guys are like legends in the company, feuding with these nasty, gross, like NWO style heels. And it was a Survivor Series match, but it was no disqualification. And what this was elimination. It played out more like a War Games match in reverse, right? And whatever faction lost had to disband.
Oh wow, that's a big match.
So stakes. You're talking stakes, right? And the first RED guy who got eliminated was Eita, who just lost the title. And the first guy that gets eliminated from Toryumon is Naruki Doi. I think it was Naruki Doi, or is it Masato Yoshino. Like, so you're talking like a legend of that company. So the two biggest names are out of this match immediately. And by the end of it, it was Dragon Kid, who was the Ultimo Dragon's like #1 top student, right? And that's why he's called Dragon Kid, facing off with Kento. And Kento, first of all, it has the best false finish in history, where the refs, Kento's, you get this big babyface comeback from Dragon Kid, and he's got Kento laid out, and the refs counting 1, 2, and right before he hits 3, Eita runs to the ring and grabs the ref's arm so he can't hit the 3 count, and the crowd loses their mind, and then Kento comes up, rips Dragon Kid's mask off, unmasks Dragon Kid, puts him in the sharpshooter, and he submits. So they put a rocket on this 20-year-old kid. They basically said this is going to be the dude.
And it seems like he was able to hold up his end of the bargain.
Hold his end bargain. It was phenomenal. When I voted, I got to vote in the Voices of Wrestling matches of the year. I want to say this was my number 5 match of the year. And like it's all on the back of a guy who's like 42, 43 with Dragon Kid and this 20-year-old. It was fantastic, man. And this kid is so good, and he's flying under the radar because he's in Dragon Gate. And there's more Western people watching Dragon Gate than there has been in years, but it's still Dragon Gate. It's still not going to get the attention New Japan gets in this country, which is a shame because it's good promotion. But I'm telling you right now, man, this dude is the Rookie of the Year. He is that good. Like he is out there having he's not being carried. He's having matches in the Dragon system, which is like these are sprint matches. So, I mean, this is good stuff. Highly, highly recommend checking him out.
Well, I can go ahead and tell you my Rookie of the Year is definitely not competing with that. I can certainly tell you that off the bat.
So I love bragging about this guy because he's so good, and I don't think enough people are paying attention. I know enough people aren't paying attention. Like, Anna Jay is going to win the Observer Award, and I'm going to punch myself in the head. And she's pretty good. But she's
pretty good. She's pretty good.
For a true rookie.
My Rookie of the Year is Dominic Mysterio.
I get it.
I don't think he's had any matches before this year. I could be wrong about that.
No, I don't think so.
And I think he's done pretty well. Now, he has been carried more than the others, but he's held up his end. But he's definitely had the benefit of working with Seth Rollins and Murphy and tag matches with Ray and Seth and Rollins. So he's definitely had the benefit of working with some top-class workers. But he's looked good. He's held up his end. I think it's smart to not have him wrestling all the time, at least on TV. I think it should be special to see him and Rey Mysterio wrestling, especially together. So I think he's my Rookie of the Year. I don't have anybody else who I can really think of who has had that limited of matches and been able to really has done pretty well. His match with Seth Rollins was really good.
Yeah, I think Seth Rollins did a good job working with him. Seth's awesome. I think that being Dominic Mysterio is very unenviable because, like, when you're a Legends kid and you're getting in the business, there's a lot more failures and like there's a lot less like overwhelming successes. Like I think Dustin Rhodes is a great example of a guy who's been great forever, and it wasn't until recently people went, man, Dustin Rhodes is really good. You know, that guy got a ton of crap early on from being Dusty Rhodes' kid. You know, it's hard. I think it was harder for Dustin than it was for Cody, because Dustin came on the scene like right after Dusty retired. You know, and a lot of people hated Dusty, and I think that reflected on him. So I think a lot of times the son of a legend gets a lot of crap, and I think that I think WWE protected Dom Mysterio. I think everybody expected Dom to be terrible, and he's not. He's got a lot of potential. I want to see him, like, you know, actually in the system. I guess he's got his own mask. He's going to be Prince Mysterio, I think I heard him say. So whenever that happens and he gets to stand on his own, good for him. I know Ray said one of the reasons he re-signed with WWE is because he wanted the kids. He wanted them to take care of his kids, which I think is a smart move for a dad. And I think that I think Dominic Mysterio will flourish well in that system, probably better than a lot of other true rookies do.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think he needs, long as he just needs, like, he can't be his dad as far as what he tries to do in the ring. Like, he has to have his own style. Like his dad is the things he was able to do and come up with are just, those are once in a generation type thing, and it's just not fair or for him to even put that on himself to try to be like that. He's got to have his own moveset, do his own thing. He can take certain moves like homages, but he's got to have his own style, I think. No,
I'm with you 150%. And I think that he's like a foot taller than his dad.
Yeah,
so,
he's not a small guy.
No, he's like 6 feet tall. Like, I mean, I don't think Ray's over 5'5". I don't think Ray's that tall. So I mean, like, he can't work the same way. He can do some of the same stuff, but he can't be the same guy. But to be fair, Rey Mysterio Jr. doesn't work like his uncle did. You know, like Rey Mysterio Sr. had that more traditional lucha style, you know, whereas Rey became one of the premier flyers in the world in the early 90s. But Rey was like 115, 20 pounds at the time. You know, Rey was a freak of nature, and it's unfair to expect Dominic to be that. And I think that part of me is like, I think being in the NXT system will restrict him a little bit because he's going to learn to work WWE style. Whereas, it seems to me that people who come into NXT as fresh don't get as good as the guys who are out there on the scene, you know, getting matches. The females, it seems to be more of an exception. Like, they seem to have done a good job bringing up a lot of the women from scratch. The men haven't had the same results. So I don't
think they've had a successful men except for like the big powerhouses.
Roman is a good example. But again, that's what works too, is Roman is the blood of the business. So I mean, I think Roman would have been a success. Dominic could be the same way, but I haven't seen a lot of the guys that they recruit and bring it, you know, that they like start fresh, be very good. You know, I can't think of many that I'd say, yeah, that guy's awesome. You know, there's dudes from the OVW days that have been in the business 20 years. Your John Morrisons, your Randy Ortons, but not as many in the last decade. Like we were talking about, there's this dude who wrestles for the University of Minnesota. His name's Gable Steveson. He's number one heavyweight in the country. Unbelievable athlete. A villain, plays the villain role in NCAA wrestling. And he said he's going to WWE. And I was talking about some of my friends today, like, how do you think he's going to do? I said he should be a can't miss prospect because he's an amazing athlete. He's got that combat sport background. He's like Brock with a better personality. Not quite as jacked a body, but, you know, that better personality. But I said, you know what? Their track record of rearing guys from day one has not been very good lately. You know? So, I mean, like, I had the same apprehension. I know that he's trained with Lance Storm. He's trained at a lot of different places, but I mean, the matches, you know, like, I think New Japan does a better job bringing guys from square one up, but yeah, I don't know. Let's see what happens. I hope he gets to become well-rounded and not just a guy who does WWE matches. Like, if he just becomes Elias, I'll be disappointed. Is that fair? Does that make sense?
No. That makes 100%. And Elias is probably the perfect example of a guy who his style is just very blah. He just happens to have he happened to have a good character when he was called up.
He did. I mean, like, and Vince McMahon utilized that way more than they ever did in NXT.
Oh yeah,
He was. I don't want to say he was a job guy, but he was like a lower mid card guy in NXT. He's gotten way more shine in the main roster than he ever got in NXT. But I don't think his matches are anything special. Like, I don't think. And again, I don't know what kind of a background that Elias Sampson had before NXT. I don't think there was much. Yeah, everyone was a rosebud at one time. Like,
it is crazy seeing that, but.
And Strowman is an example of a guy, like, it's like Big Show. It's like, oh, that guy should print money. And they find a way to not print money with him, you know?
Yeah,
like Mark Henry,
he's definitely the modern day Big Show. He's found his spot. He'll be there for 20 years, but he is in that Big Show Kane spot.
He's he's Big Show. I don't think he's as good as Kane either.
Oh no, he's not as good as either of them, but he's in that spot.
Yeah, and it just that's what I'm saying. It's like he's a WWE Prime project. Like from day one, I don't feel those guys ever get to be as good. I think that's one reason why NXT is full with guys in their mid-30s. Because those are the good guys, you know?
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Those are the work rate guys, and those are the guys you want working with your guys that you're training coming up. Because those are the ones who are going to give them that feel.
Well, you tell me who you want to watch in a match, Keith Lee or Braun Strowman. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, Keith Lee all day.
Right, all day. So, like I said, I'm down on the Performance Center right now because I just want to see some better results. You know, and not from Roderick Strong. Like, Roderick Strong's been great for 20 years, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, I want to see, like, Chad Gable could be a good story, but, I mean, he was an Olympian coming in. He did some indie stuff before, but, I mean, like, they don't utilize him.
Man, it sucks. The one guy who they could have had and could have been is he's another creep, and that's Velveteen Dream.
Yeah, I agree. He's self-destructed because that guy was on a path to superstardom, and I don't think people are going to forgive him. He's lucky to have a job, to be honest.
Absolutely. He's 100% lucky to have a job and to be on TV.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous. But
I agree. But again, this is WWE. Like, they let that stuff slide sometimes if they like you.
And they do for good reason. Like, he had everything going for him, but he's a creep too. So
he's talented. I do think he kind of hit a wall where, like, he was getting really good, and then he kind of hit a wall, and it was like he didn't really kind of get over the hump. And, like, now I don't think it's ever going to happen. You know?
No, I don't think so either.
But like I said, I mean, like, he's a disappointment. He's definitely one of the biggest, like, disappointments of the last, like, probably decade.
Because I think pretty much everybody was pegging him as the next guy. People were just asking for him to face Cena at Mania. Like, it was like, it's got to be him versus Cena. But
then it turns out that, like, you know, it's not going to do
that. Most underutilized. Who you got there?
Most underutilized. Here you. I was going to say Hiroki Goto in New Japan. Yeah, you know, I just think Goto's past his prime, so they're not going to do anything with him. Goto should go to Noah. You've
always been high on him, and you've always thought he should have been a main event player. You've talked about that for a while.
Goto has been a main event player, but it's just like he never quite gets over the top. And part of it is because of, like, you know, Goto does have some, you know, okay, put it this way. If Evil can be the IWGP champion, why the hell can't Goto? You know, like
that's a great point.
Even at his age, like, and again, I'm watching. Yeah, I'll go with Goto. Like, I watch a lot of Noah, and I jokingly refer to Noah sometimes as the senior tour of Japan. You know, they have a lot of old guys wrestling in Noah. Like, Nosawa Rangai loves to bring in his old buddies. Like I said, I'm going to watch Keiji Muto, one of my all-time favorite wrestlers, keeping in mind, wrestle Go Shiozaki, who's 38, for the GHC title next month. So I'm like, you know, Goto's as good as anybody here. Why, you know, he's just a never six-man guy there. And again, he had his opportunities, and they never really went with him, and I get why, but, you know, I think he could be doing more in the company. You know, I could have said Satoshi Kojima, same thing. He's 50, and he won both All Japan and New Japan titles, but they're using him now. Like, now he's feuding with Will Ospreay and Jeff Cobb, so, you know, kudos to Kojima. Now I'll go Goto, because it seems like nobody even cares about Goto anymore.
Oh, well, Maybe this is the year. You know, he don't even need to be winning the main events. He just needs to just be put in them and let people just see the.
Because he could still go.
Right,
I want to see Goto. I'd like to see Goto versus Ibushi. This is why I think I don't like the double titles in New Japan right now. Because I do think that Intercontinental title could be doing something else. You know,
he should. I don't see why they don't just have him defend the IC title separately, like independently.
He's talking about he wants it to be like one title. Like Ibushi's like, we don't need two belts. Make this one title.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, ooh, we want to get rid of the Intercontinental title? I think that's a bad idea.
Especially with Mox still not there either.
Right, well, yeah, they don't even care about the U.S. title. The U.S. title means about as much to New Japan as the Mega title means to AAA. They don't care. Like, that is basically Jon Moxley's belt.
So it has become the U.S. title of WWE as well.
Maybe. Like, at least, I think the U.S. title in New Japan has value because it's on Jon Moxley.
That's true. I will give you
like
that.
that's the only value it has. Like when it was on Kenny, it had value. When it was on Cody, it had value. When it was on Juice, not as much. And I like Lance Archer a lot, but I mean when it was on Archer, not as much because Archer had been defined for most of his career as a tag team guy in New Japan. You know, and Jon Moxley even not being defended in the country still means something because it's on Jon Moxley.
There's anticipation there.
Yeah, when we do have a match, and I don't anticipate the Moxley Kenta match being very good, but you know when it happens, it'll be interesting. People will pay attention.
Okay, that's a good pick.
Who is the WWE US champ right now? I don't even know.
Bobby Lashley, and I will say they've actually done a pretty good job of keeping Bobby Lashley pretty strong here lately.
Well, they've done a good job. Yeah, the Hurt Business is actually one of the bright spots in Raw on a bad show. So yeah, never mind.
Raw's been that's been a tough watch, man. I'm a WWE guy, and I'm all about it. But that's a tough watch.
I get on Twitter on Monday nights, and I see no praise for Raw. Like even from sane people like a Sean Ross Sapp, like he's a pretty middle of the road dude, and that guy's burying. Like Warren Hayes is the nicest guy in the world on Twitter, and he is like, man, Raw sucks. So I mean, like it can't be very good.
Yeah, it's a tough watch. There's good moments and there's good spots, good matches, but it's just not a good show. My most underutilized, and I think I'll get your seal of approval for this one. Someone who watches NXT all the time, man, it's a shame they haven't done more with this guy. He should at least be fighting for the North American title. Swerve Scott.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
That guy, man, I don't know what they're doing with him. Every time he's on the screen, he does some type of move. Actually, more so, he does a counter that I don't think I've seen before. He's just incredible and so innovative. And he's got a different look. He's got a different style, different move set. He moves different. Like, everything about him just stands out. And I just don't get why they don't do more with him. He had one little run with the Cruiserweight. Not run with the title, but he had a shot at the Cruiserweight title, and he got a good little bit of shine. But then after that, he just falls to the wayside. Now he's losing to Jake Atlas. I don't understand what's going on with Swerve Scott. I feel like that guy could easily be playing with the main event guys.
So I got some bad news for you. Buddy Paul Fontaine from Fight Game, he does the Wednesday breakdowns for us for the ratings breakdowns, and he'll go through the and I think he goes way in depth, and he'll chart who the guys are that have the most effect on the remote control, like who are the biggest ratings winners and losers, like who are the guys that when they show up the channel gets flipped, and Jake Atlas is the biggest channel flipper on NXT, and Swerve Scott's number 2. And I think that's probably because he's been tied to Jake Atlas for so long, which is a shame because they're both talented. And I don't I'm not watching a lot of NXT, but the fact that I'm not being bombarded with Shane Swerve Scott stuff all the time in my Twitter feed tells me they're not doing enough good stuff with him. Because I love this man in MLW. I loved him in Lucha Underground. He was Kill Shot. Awesome character. And I don't see. I mean, it seems like they're not utilizing him as well. The Cruiserweight belt, unfortunately, means nothing.
No, it doesn't. I will say they're at least trying to establish it. Santos Escobar has done he's done as well of
another great Lucha Underground guy. Yeah, no argument there.
Another great guy. He's done as good of a job as you can, but he's not being given a lot to work with. Those two should have had a killer feud. There's no reason that title can't be elevated by those two just having a great feud, and they're just throwing all this extra stuff in it that doesn't need to be there. Just let these guys do their thing, man. they just get in the way a lot. They just in the way a lot.
It seems like they have not adjusted well to booking a 2-hour NXT, and that's not just my opinion. That is based on the fact that it is the least watched pro wrestling show from the major companies, and it has one of the best rosters. And it's a shame, and I think that I'll say I think this is exposed. I think the performance of NXT has exposed Triple H a little bit. I don't think there's a whole lot of creativity going on because it's not like people. For the most time, I talk to people who watch NXT, they're just kind of like, yeah, NXT, it's got great matches, but it's not like people are talking about like the great storylines going on. They'll pop a rating when they have a good match because that's what people want out of NXT. They want good matches, but like they don't like it doesn't have that repeat business, I think that's because they're not doing enough story wise with them. And I'm not saying you got to be Lucha Underground where guys got to be time traveling and stuff like that, but give me something.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's not a lot you can really say. Obviously, he knows that he's only going to have people for a certain amount of time. That there's certain people that he's not going to be able to keep. So sometimes there's nothing you can do about it, but there's still no excuse for not having any type of long-term stories going on. The best story they've had this year was Pat McAfee versus Adam Cole.
Yeah.
That's a problem. That was the best story. Yeah, that is a problem. And now he's not on TV.
When the best story, and to be for all intents and purposes, that story worked and people were into it and they were invested and Pat McAfee drew attention and he did a great job. Why does that have to be a retired punter when you have all this talent? Why don't you protect the rest of your guys that way? You know what I'm saying? Like, why not? It's hard. Again, people go, well, you don't have Triple H tell me you don't have a territory. What do you do? Yeah, you're right. Okay, I don't have a territory. But I can tell you, it's easier to be a critic. But this ain't working. I'll tell you that right now.
It's not working. It's not working.
Do better.
Hopefully they're laying the foundation for a good 2021. Hopefully a guy like Bronson Reed is somebody I'm hoping is going to have another. He was now that I think about it, he was my guy from 2020 who I thought was going to have a big breakout year in 2020, and he didn't do it. So I'm picking him again. I hope he has a big breakout year this year. So
I think they pushed the wrong guys in NXT, to be quite honest with you. I think that Sam Shaw is still Sam Shaw. Nothing about Sam Shaw impressed me in Impact, and now he's Dexter Lumis, and they're just like, I don't get it.
They just like his look. They just like his look. He's got a good look, and that must be what it is.
Does have a good look. I think there's a lot more upside in Bronson Reed. I really do. I think there's a lot more upside. I know they love Killer Cross. Killer Cross has, Karrion Cross has a good look, and the gimmick is fun and all that. But that's
give me Damian Priest instead.
Yeah, I agree with that. Damian Priest is better. He's much better than him. And I guess Priest is supposed to be going up. But so here's those guys don't have to be in the title picture. Right? Those guys can be if you know they're going to leave soon, because these got to know, okay, Vince is going to take this guy. Just give him a hot feud.
Right.
And just move him on. Because having Killer Cross as your champion doesn't really help you. Finn Balor clearly isn't going anywhere, right? But and as much as people love Kyle O'Reilly, not a lot of personality there. There is, but not the kind of personality that is a main eventer.
He's not a lead babyface, but he's a good babyface to have in that mix.
Yeah, I agree. But this is the thing with Finn. How long has this thing with Balor been going on with them right now? You know what I'm saying? It's not. And every time they wrestle each other, they both die. So it's part of me is what are you guys doing to each other?
Oh man, you're not wrong. They be breaking each other's jaws.
Right, it keeps happening. One time I was busting your balls a little bit. I'm like, oh man, these guys got to learn how to work down in the performance center. I was just busting balls, and then it happened again. And I'm like, all right, now there's something. Do these dudes hate each other or what? What's going on? There's something up with it. And I don't know, man. I don't know. NXT is they should be doing better. That's not to say they can't. 2021 could be a great year for them. You just have to see it.
No, I agree. While we're talking about who is attracting and who's not attracting viewers, who is the biggest draw for you in 2020?
For me, it'll always be Jon Moxley. Not just for what he. I mean, it was a really tough year, and I wrote this nice article for Feige about Moxley when he lost, and I wrote about how he was the only guy they could have gone with in this situation, and ratings plummeted for everything. AEW managed to lessen the bleeding more than every other show, and I attribute it to Moxley. I think Moxley evolved this year from being the wild man deathmatch guy or the lunatic fringe that he used to be into being this everyman champion. He became more like a modern day Dusty Rhodes than anything, with these amazing, heartfelt promos that he was cutting, and he was mowing through villains. I mean, and then what sealed it for me is I spent money on Bloodsport, an indie pay-per-view with terrible production values, because I wanted to see Jon Moxley do work UWFI style stuff. I'm like, I want to see what this can be. And he walked out with a sweatshirt and immediately felt like the biggest star in the room. The man has a presence. And when it really showed to me when he decided to work an indie show. And I think that if we had had a normal year, I think you would have seen Jon Moxley do an old school NWA champion thing where he was taking the belt to different territories and stuff like that. Different promotions and the smaller things and doing those shows, because he just loves pro wrestling. And wherever he goes, believe me, when I write something about Jon Moxley, my freaking retweets go through the roof. I think he was the biggest draw. Yeah, I think he was the biggest draw in wrestling. So Kenny Omega's been controversial in his early run as AEW champion. He's not as big a draw as Moxley, but it's also early and it's also different. He's doing something different than Moxley did. So I want to see where it goes from here, because Moxley's first title defense was against Hager, and that match sucked and it didn't do much for anybody. But over the course of a summer and a year, it really built into stuff, and I really appreciated him. And I think that having a guy with that WWE experience, being a star, because he was a star before he came in. Mm-hmm. He didn't rest on his laurels like Chris Jericho did. He pushed himself to be something more this year. And yeah, he's my favorite wrestler in the world right now. I love Jon Moxley.
Okay. I can't really argue with that. Jon Moxley will come up later on in one of my awards. He was a close second for me in this one. I actually went with Sasha Banks. I can't argue with that. I thought you'd have gone with Roman, and I was playing to argue. I don't think there's enough sample size, but I think this is a good one, because she is a difference maker when she's on, when she does something. And it's shown more so when she's advertised for something, that there's a big difference when she's advertised. And she has the highest rated segment on SmackDown all year. I think her and Bayley's championship match had 4.5 million viewers, or close to that, which is, I think, is the highest number since their debut. So, I mean, she's a star. The Mandalorian definitely helped her star caliber, her star power. Her and Bayley pretty much were the reason kept the women's division afloat for the most part.
I'd say the show.
I don't argue with that. Their storyline, their chemistry, everything about them really was some of the highlights of the show. And Asuka's really missing them right now. Because I won't even get started with her and Alexa Bliss, but she's missing them right now, and you can tell that. And Sasha is one of the few people who's able to go to NXT and make a difference, and she's done that a couple times. So, Sasha Banks was my biggest draw. John, I can't really argue with anything you said about Moxley, because I don't think anybody else could have followed Chris Jericho and not only kept the momentum, but pushed the momentum further. So, Jon Moxley is a very close second for me.
Yeah, I can't argue with Sasha Banks at all. Dear God, don't say anything bad about her on Twitter.
She's got some fans.
You'll have to nuke your account. She's great. She's a star. In an era where the WWE specifically has struggled to build stars, Sasha Banks is a star. And I'll even go as far as say, I don't think they take advantage of it enough.
They don't. They don't even talk about the Mandalorian.
No, it's that a step, because it's not theirs. They didn't get it for her. That must have been super controversial for her to get that. There's something there when she leaves WWE someday. There's going to be a story about that long extended break she took. There's something. Because like when Moxley left, you got the stories. Renee, you're hearing her stories. Like there's a Sasha Banks story because she's got this I don't give a F attitude right now, and it really helps her character, to be quite honest with you. But like it doesn't even seem like she cares, you know, and that's been great for her. But at the same time, like they don't treat her the way they treat Charlotte, you know, and it's like, yeah, she's held the belt a lot, but like I don't feel like she's the focus of the women's division now when she should be.
And you know what's crazy is, and I'm not a fan of Becky Lynch, but Becky Lynch never really felt like they treated her the same way they treated Charlotte either, even though she just gave them no choice. There was just no choice. I have never seen a talent aside from Steve Austin and that was like I got excited watching WWE with her, and I'm not a women's wrestling. I don't dislike it, but it's not what like my number one thing to watch. When I was paying attention to WWE and actually watching the show, she was my favorite thing because there was like she just took command, and I enjoy that in wrestling because there's not enough, you know, people that just take command. And she did. She had she seized the opportunity and made something happen. And it worked. And other people have been punished for trying that. And she like manifested it. And like Sasha Banks does it in a different way. But like there's something about her where she feels bigger than the show right now. And I don't know if they like that. And you know what? She knows her worth, and I think that's something. There's something to that, is because she probably was like, "Listen, y'all not gonna do nothing to me because I will go to AEW and just change that whole entire division around."
You're right.
And I'm sure she probably played that.
Guarantee it. She's smart. She did.
I mean, why wouldn't you? If she went to AEW, she'd arguably be the biggest name there. I mean, outside of Moxley.
No, I agree. Outside of Moxley and Jericho.
And probably Jericho, yes, and Jericho. Yep.
Because Jericho still has name value, you know, like
no doubt.
Say what you want about the year he had, you know, and you wouldn't be wrong about any of it. But I mean, like name value, Chris Jericho means something. No, she wouldn't be Sasha Banks though. And this is why WWE does the thing, and this is why she's smart. Like on her, you know, she's Mercedes on her social media now. She was Mercedes there, you know, like this is why the people in WWE do that, is so they can build their brand for when they need it.
You know what? And that's exactly why WWE didn't promote The Mandalorian, because it wasn't Sasha Banks. I didn't think about that. That's a good point.
I think that if they were more on board, they would have had her credited as Sasha Banks. There's like I'm saying, there's a story here, and they didn't. They said they found her on Hot Ones. The name of the show, the Hot Wings show.
Hot Ones.
Yeah, that's where they found her, not in wrestling, and she was great. You know, very small role, but I mean, like, I'll tell you this. I think we said this on the show before. She did a better job than The Rock did in the first Mummy movie.
Oh yeah, light years better.
You know, like I'm not talking Scorpion King. I'm talking like Mummy 2. Like he was like, oh wow, I'm like wow, this man. I guess he doesn't have a future in movies. Boy, was I wrong. That's why I'm here and he's there. I think that whenever her contract ends, she's still young, so she's got some decisions. Does she want to stay there? Does she want to be in movies? Does she want to try her hand doing other things? Does she, you know, I don't know if AEW would ever, she'd have to want to go to AEW more than like need to go to AEW, you know what I'm saying? Like it'd just be like I want to do this.
Yep.
I don't know if she would, but maybe. I mean, if I'm Tony Khan, I throw her a bunch of money and I say, hey, I am Tony Khan. I have all these connections to whatever you want, you know?
I'll tell you this, if she ever did sign to AEW, whichever show she shows up on and she's advertised for, they will do over 1 million. No question.
Oh, absolutely. It's a great category you put this in, a draw. She is a legitimate draw. There's not many of them in the game right now, but she's one. It's a good call.
Match of the year.
I professed my love for this match on this show about 2 months ago, and I won't do it all over again, but it was a story of two best friends. The one best friend gets jealous of the other, turns his back on him, becomes a vile piece of crap, and it culminates in a match where the champion's body is falling apart, but his heart and spirit push him on. And I adore everything about Go Shiozaki and Katsuhiko Nakajima.
Heading back to Dragon Gate.
No, Noah.
Oh, Noah. That's right. Noah.
Yeah, Noah. This was my favorite match of the year, probably because the story. Like, there's people that would say the Sugiura match with Shiozaki was better. I like that one a lot too, but I loved this story. And Japanese wrestling is oftentimes the storytelling is a little bit more simplistic. When I say simple, I mean like it's a simple story. Like, guy doesn't like guy, for this reason. And this one just really hit home, and I thought it was delivered in such a good way. And Shiozaki's having this – it's such a good story with Shiozaki in general, where he's finally got this epic title run that it's his fourth run with the belt, and he's finally got the epic one that he should have had a decade ago, but his body is failing him when he's at his best, but how long does he have left? How long until his arms literally fall off? And Nakajima – is the same kind of thing, like a guy who hasn't attained what he should have attained. And now he's become a total piece of crap to do it. And it was really good, really simple pro wrestling storytelling that absolutely captivated me from the fall this year. That was my favorite match.
Okay. So my match of the year, and it might have to do because I just recently rewatched this match, and it was one of the earlier matches of the year. And technically it's not the best match of the year, but this just had the most energy and just still packs a punch as far as what actually happened in the moments in the match. My match of the year is the Royal Rumble from 2020.
Really?
I just watched it, and I really liked the Royal Rumble. The first half with Brock Lesnar just dominating everybody, and then you get the little moments of Keith Lee. You get the moments of Drew McIntyre finally eliminating him, Braun Strowman, these big guys getting the moments with Brock Lesnar. Those moments work really well, and I'm not going to lie. The crowd definitely adds to the match and just makes me miss the crowd so much. So that there could be a bias there as far as having a crowd there. And
I get it. I think a lot of people vote for the Kenny Hangman Bucks match for the same reason.
That was probably my number 2, actually,
because the crowd was so hot. We just don't have hot crowds anymore. I thought you were going to mention. I'm surprised you haven't yet. Is the Edge comeback?
Well, yeah, and that was the ending of it, because they almost messed that up because they had the wrong camera angle for his first spear. But
that's like when AJ debuted and they screwed that up.
Oh my gosh, how do you do that? You know he's going to run in and spear somebody. Like, you know Edge is going to do that. What else do you think he's going to do when he walks in the ring?
You know who's a dude that lost his fastball this year is Kevin Dunn. Well, probably Kevin Dunn has completely lost it as far as being a technical director goes. WWE TV is nauseating to watch. With the snap zooms and like the camera movement. Now they have the 8K camera, it's even worse. Like, can't stand it.
I just don't understand. Like, sometimes you just need to. You put a Twitter post out about Jay White, and there's a camera angle, a still shot of Wrestle Kingdom after he lost, where it's just him reaching for the belt, almost grabbing the belt, and it being taken away at the very last moment. The camera never cuts; it sits right there. Sometimes it's best just to leave things and let things be, and just let the moment play out.
So this is the difference in philosophy of New Japan and WWE. Because like you always said, we teach them to work to the camera. They got to work to the camera. In New Japan, the cameramen are taught you work to the wrestlers. You find them. And these cameramen are out here telling stories with it, And it's not like pre-planned, and there's not like a zillion cuts. I think the New Japan camera operators are the best in the game right now. I really do. Like, New Japan is the product I enjoy watching the most for that reason.
I can't argue with that. That's a great. I mean, that camera angle right there, that little GIF that you shared, that tells the entire story of not only the match but really the weekend.
Jay White,
it tells this whole story.
Mm-hmm. It's like I even said I dare call this cinematography. Like, it was that good. Like, there was nothing that I've seen in WWE or AEW, to be fair. Like, because I'm an AEW guy, I saw nothing from them that was near this level either. Like, New Japan, it's different there. Like I said, the cameramen are taught you guys are the ones working. You work to them. They don't work to you. And I love that philosophy. You know, because I think in WWE, you see that a lot of guys. They think like, oh, "Where's the camera? Where's the?" You know, like you'll see it a lot in like from the younger guys. Where's the camera? Got to find the camera. You know, when all you should be thinking about is winning the match, and that's the difference too. Is like in New Japan, the guys are taught you're looking to win the match, right? You work to win the match. It's a different philosophy. It's better.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, so that's why I go, and Edge's return was great, very emotional. You could see it in his face. Once he stepped in the ring, he looked like he was about to cry, and I completely get it. I'm sure he probably never thought he'd have that moment again. The crowd was nuts for it. I thought the wrestlers' faces in the ring was all perfect. AJ and Dolph's, their reactions were all great. Him and Orton had a moment that worked perfectly into their story, so that was good. I thought this was a star-making performance for Drew McIntyre. I thought this really took him to that next level, and you know, it's a shame what happened after, but I felt like this match really took him from being a guy with a lot of potential who should be a main eventer to, okay, he's in the main event now.
I really feel like they've lost their, like I was talking about Hulk Hogan before, right? And how they just fed people to him and let him be this ultimate baby face, and they seem to have lost the ability to do that. And like they make things more complicated than they need to be sometimes. And I think that Drew McIntyre is a guy who could have really benefited from, you know, mowing dudes down for a year or two. You know, just saying this is our best guy. And they didn't really do that. Like there's no reason he had to lose the title the first time. There was no reason he had to lose to Roman Reigns, you know, at Survivor Series in a match that ultimately didn't mean a dick, you know. I don't know. They did Drew dirty.
I agree with you on the Orton thing. He didn't need to lose that match. Orton can take 3 losses to Drew and be just fine.
Orton can never win another match again and be fine.
And be just fine. I agree with that. The Roman one, I don't mind that, especially the way it happened, because Roman had to cheat to beat that guy. So I don't mind that as long as...
Why did the match have to happen? That's my question.
That's okay. I'll give you that. It probably didn't need to happen.
For brand supremacy that nobody cares about? Nobody cares about which is better, SmackDown or Raw. Nobody cares about that. Like the whole blue-red T-shirt thing, like Vince McMahon wants this like this internal competition, but nobody's ever believed it. Like even if it's real to them, it's not to the fans. And I think all that did was hurt a potential WrestleMania mega match. Because if you kept those guys away from each other for 2 or 3 years,
I agree with that.
Then you have something special. But they didn't. They wasted in a pay-per-view that has already been forgotten. They have too many pay-per-views in WWE that don't mean a damn thing.
No, I don't disagree with you with that. If they'd have kept them apart and then you know, have Roman keep the belt for a year and a half. Like nobody, if Roman kept the belt for a year and a half, I don't think anybody would be surprised. Like Roman's that guy. Well, you know, people. He's protected. He's treated as such. He's been knocking it out the park. So, you know, these are going to be layers to it. You can build up baby faces. There's a lot you could have did. Drew McIntyre could be that guy, but you bring up a good point. They just, you know, they don't know how to build baby faces anymore. And even though they've done a good job with Drew, it should have been a great job with Drew.
Yeah, it should have been a slam dunk. Here's the thing I've noticed. Is there any difference between Roman right now in his booking? Is it he's just bad now? Like, it's still the whole show revolves around him. The only difference is now he's mean. Right? Like, nobody is being like, do you think Kevin, like, first they're pushing Adam Pearce, and then it was Kevin Owens, and they'll lose to him for the 3rd straight pay-per-view. Like, no one is being built up to be a challenger for Roman on SmackDown. Again, SmackDown's the most watched wrestling show right now. It's it's working, but another part of me is like, where are we going? Like, I feel like we've kind of hit a spot with this story where it's just the same, you know? And I don't know where it goes. And Roman Reigns is embracing this role, but again, I think it's the lack of creativity because, like, I'm going to put it like this. When Hulk Hogan went heel and the NWO came in and we're running roughshod over WCW, one of the greatest stories ever, you had Sting coming. And they built that for a year plus. You knew it was going to happen. Sting was coming. Where's Sting?
So there's definitely no Sting. There's definitely no long-term story. No, there definitely should be.
I'll tell you who it should be. It should be Big E.
Now,
but they're not doing that.
Well, you say that, and they're probably not, and maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but Apollo Crews has been kind of in this little mini feud with Big E, and Roman Reigns kind of went and almost recruited Apollo Crews to, think about maybe not being such a good guy all the time. So I think there might be some seeds being planted here for Roman to cost Big E the IC title, and Big E to be like, well, you cost me my title, let me just take your title. Maybe a Royal Rumble win after he costs him the belt. And then you got 8 weeks to build up Big E, and I'm with you. I think Big E's ready, so maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but hopefully that's where they're building to.
And here's what I'm saying is 8 weeks isn't enough time.
No.
Like, if you're going to do this with Roman, right, if you're going to have him run roughshod, which I'm all for, by the way. I have no problem with what they're doing. My problem is where is it? Like, because ultimately we have to build to something. And ultimately we lose track of story in wrestling. Story is character A has a goal, character B or whatever, doesn't be character B, and it stands in his way. When he gets there, he's changed. That's a story, right? And oftentimes we convolute the idea of story with all these twists and turns that really aren't story. They're just beats or plots or something that gets lost along the way. So my question is what is the story? Like, where are we going with it? Like, and if you were, now my opinion, you keep Roman and Big E away from each other for a year. For a year. And then do it. Because again, now you have something. If Big E's killing everybody, which he should be, and he's moving that way, like, but again, because again, you knew Sting was coming for Hogan. You knew it. Like, it was like, and again, they could have done that better, but like it worked in the era. Like, that should be with Big E and Roman, and when they do meet, it should be like huge. But I don't know if the fall to WrestleMania is enough to really sink it in. Are they going to pull the trigger? Will they actually let Big E defeat Roman? And when I say Big E defeat Roman, I mean like dethrone him. He's changed afterwards because they didn't with Sting. WCW blew it there.
I wonder if The Rock, if they're thinking The Rock is supposed to be the Sting there.
That's not good because like you're not creating anything. Like, that's not like you're going to bring in The Rock for 2 matches to beat Roman, and then eventually it goes back to Roman, and we start over, which is exactly what happened with Sting and Hulk Hogan. Right, that's exactly the mistake they made. Mm-hmm. At that point, Sting should have reigned. Sting should have had a reign. Didn't they? Took the title off him immediately, and then it was back on Hulk Hogan. So I wasted 15 months of my investment into this because they didn't know where to go. They built it to the moment, and the moment was over, and then it went right back to where it was. So when that happens, it feels like it wasn't worth it. You know what I'm saying? And that's my fear, is if you build this for The Rock, you get a one-day thing. Maybe for a little bit, but that's going to go back to Roman, and then we're right back to where we started from. And you didn't bring anybody else up. That's the problem, is who else gets elevated? Nobody else gets elevated.
No,
it should be Big E.
I agree with you. At the end of this, somebody should be elevated. I don't think they have that long term booking, and I'm hoping, if at the least, even if Big E loses, like, they won't do it, but I'd be okay with Big E winning the Rumble, losing to Roman this year,
doing the Kota Ibushi thing.
Yeah, pretty much pulling a Kota Ibushi and beating him next year.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. I think that'd be great. And this was crazy to me. I just wrote a story about how WWE mirrored Macbeth and did this 1.5 year long storyline. I almost stretched into 2 years with Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan. That was just excellent storytelling. I'm going to write one about Bret Hart and Owen Hart later. Like, this company used to be all about, what happens next year. And at some point, Vince McMahon stopped caring about, next year. Like, how do we make this better? And just started worrying about what interests me this week. It's a shame because they used to be the best at this.
Yeah. No, I have no argument for that. Before we get to Wrestler of the Year, a couple ones I didn't mention. I don't know why, but just see if you have an answer. If not, it's okay.
Lay it on me.
Tag Team of the Year.
I gotta say Paige and Omega.
Okay.
They're I'm not watching anything. I didn't. No one in New Japan. I mean, I'm not gonna go with Dangerous Tekkers. New Japan. Like, no, like Dragon Gate, like BB Hulk and Ada. No, like no, no one. I can't say the Bucks were the Bucks and FTR storyline was so. This is what I'm talking about. Lack of story is they needlessly complicated that. That was a needlessly complicated.
It was backwards.
It was backwards, but it was like they were trying to. They thought about how can we do this? What can we do different instead of what can we do right? So I can't give it to any of those guys, and I don't think that. I think it took FTR about 6 months to get comfortable working outside the WWE. I think they're better now than they were 6 months ago. But yeah, I can't give it to either of those guys. I got to give it to Omega and Hangman.
I don't,
and I don't love that pick, by the way.
Yeah, and so part of me, they were my first pick, but then I'm like, man, they're not even a real tag team. Which was the story. That was the story. That was the story, and they are a good team. They work really well together. And then I was like, well, I go with Street Profits, but they
could see that,
and they've done a really good job, but I don't know if their quality of matches have definitely not been up to the caliber that Hangman and Page have had this year, and that has to count for something. So I agree with you. I go with them, and Street Profits are a close second for me.
Yeah, and I hear a lot of good things about Street Profits. Like I've always thought they had the potential to be really good back when I was following NXT. I don't watch main roster WWE, but they seem to be someone that people seem rather high on. But again, tag team wrestling isn't valued in WWE, so
Montez Ford will be. He'll be a
superstar.
He should be a main event player in 5 years.
I agree.
He should be one of those guys that they should be protect. He should be taking no losses. Dawkins can take all the losses for them. He should be protected, and he should be making these crazy comebacks. He can do it all.
I want someone to throw him in my face. Like, this is the guy who they started from scratch, who became a legend. I will gladly take the L if Montez Ford becomes a main eventer.
That's a good call.
He's been nowhere else. He is their guy. Let me see where it goes. Again, I question people who haven't been outside the system and how good they really are, but he's got all the potential in the world.
Female superstar of the year. We'll probably both agree on this.
Sasha Banks.
Yeah, Sasha Banks, no question.
We already praised her. I have no more praise left to give to the greatest female superstar in professional wrestling.
Yeah, nothing but praise for her. Yep. She can enjoy that reign at least until Becky Lynch is done with sitting at home ready to come back.
It might not happen. We'll see.
It might not. You might be right. She might enjoy motherhood and be like, yeah, I'm done with this. Seth's good.
They made money because now you got her and Seth money, and they got that school. Like, they're not hurting.
Yeah, you're right.
Starting to churn guys out too. He's churning guys out. They got some good guys coming out of that school. Ben Carter, Zicky Dice, like he's a pretty good trainer.
Seth might have found his life right after he finished his in-ring career.
Yeah, I dare to say he's done a better job than the Performance Center.
I wouldn't be surprised to see them try to sign him up to start coaching the Performance Center or make that some type of connection, his school and the Performance Center.
Oh, I think it is. But I'm saying right now, Zicky Dice and Ben Carter are better than a lot of the guys that have come out that have started at the Performance Center. So, I mean, they're doing something right over there. Kudos to my guy at the other end of the state. So, good job, yeah.
Okay, the big one, Wrestler of the Year. Who you got?
Oh, I went back and forth on this. I wanted to say Shizaki, but because he's had such good matches, but at the end of the day, Noah's Noah, and it didn't. They had a good year. They had a transformative year for their company, and I really loved that company. But I can't. I got to be real, and I got to say Jon Moxley. I can't say anyone else but Moxley.
It pains me to say it, but I agree. I think Jon Moxley's Wrestler of the Year. I genuinely don't think there was anybody else who was available that could have carried that company the way he did.
He was the glue that held pro wrestling together in its worst era ever.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't. I don't know if anybody else who really could have done that. The promos were great. I wasn't quite as high on his in-ring work as a lot of people were. I thought he left a little bit something to be desired on some of his matches.
No, I can see that. You're never going to get a Kenny Omega style match out of Jon Moxley. He's definitely cut more from the Brody, Terry Funk school of like being a brawler. But I'll say this: since leaving WWE, he's become significantly better. Now that he doesn't have to work in that lunatic fringe character, he's a much better professional wrestler. But still an acquired taste. Like, I mean, there's like I get people say I don't dig him as a wrestler. Like I said, when I compared him to like Dusty Rhodes. You know, like he's definitely a character wrestler, but I like he's added the MMA. I like that he's added a lot more moves to his repertoire, because
more high impact moves, especially
more high impact moves. Yeah, he's gotten rid of the rebound. Speaking of Terry Funk, the rebound clothesline. Like, he's done a lot of stuff that I've appreciated. He's worked a lot more MMA ground and pound in 20s, which was nothing like that in WWE. So he's definitely. Like, people say, oh, he's, you know, the same guy. I'm like, no, he's not the same guy.
He's got a completely different moveset. He does submissions now. Like, it's completely different.
Completely different. His promo style is different. You know, everything about like, Jon Moxley and Dean Ambrose are just played by the same dude. Like, there's nothing about the two guys that are, like, the promo style is the biggest difference. Like,
I really like the Terry clothesline, though. That was one of my favorite Dean
I enjoyed
Ambrose
it
moves.
too, but he really got, like, he hasn't done it since he left, so clearly he didn't like it. So, and again, I appreciate a guy who, because too often, like, I'll pick on Matt Cardona for a second. You know, he had people were ripping on AEW for bringing him in. He had a 5-match deal and never showed up again. He's in Impact now, probably where he belongs. Matt Cardona is Zack Ryder. He's Zack Ryder. It's the same guy, you know?
He's going to have the same moveset. He's going to do the same thing.
Same dude. Jon Moxley is not Dean Ambrose.
I think Miro falls in that category, too. He's the same guy to me.
I want to see more in-ring from Miro. We haven't had enough. There's not enough sample size, I think, from his in-ring work. I don't argue with you. But again, what is Miro? Come up in the system. What's Zack Ryder? Came up in the system. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, that's true.
Like, there's something to be said about guys. Jon Moxley paved his, and Rollins, too, paved their way on the indies. You know? They know how to get over in different places. There's something to be said about that. You know, and I think that a lot of the guys that leave WWE that came from WWE struggle. The guys who leave WWE that came from other places don't seem to struggle as much.
They seem to actually get more confident. Like, they seem to have more of a star quality when they go elsewhere.
Check this out. This is interesting. Have you watched any of Ty Conti's work since she left WWE?
I've seen part of a match, but I have not seen a full match at first.
She had a really good match with Serena Deeb last week. And again, Serena Deeb's really good. That's why she was coaching in NXT before she got released. So she is significantly more confident than she was in NXT. And, like, she has this match, and she's doing a lot more of her judo background stuff. And, like, she is significantly better than she was in NXT. And I think a lot of it is because, it is, like, not every coach works with every player. You know, and sometimes people it's better to be in a different world. And, like, she is one of the few people who have left the WWE system and have, I think, improved their game. Because I think a lot of the guys that the WWE trained guys leave and nothing really happens to them. You know, because they're not as good. Like, I like Zack Ryder, don't get me wrong, but he's Zack Ryder. You know, he's Matt. You know, I didn't refer to him as Matt Cardona. I referred to him as Zack Ryder. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, he is who he is. Like, you know what you're getting with Zack Ryder.
Right.
Jon Moxley gave us a whole new chapter to his book.
Jon Moxley went to New Japan and said, I'm going to do a G1. I'm going to work with Ishii. I'm going to work with Tagaki. Like, but again, he came from, Combat Zone and, like, he had matches with these guys, Dragon Gate USA. Like, Jon Moxley worked the indies, so he kind of got that more. But he did. He left WWE a better wrestler, because he definitely improved with his time there. But he came out and decided, I'm going to reinvent myself, which I respect. I don't see enough of that. And you're right about Miro. He has not shown that quite yet. So people are like, oh, Miro should be pushed as a top guy. I'm like, no, I don't know. Like, he's got to show me he's a top guy. I like that Tony Khan's not handing top guy spots out to dudes. You know?
And there's a lot of guys in that company who, and we've talked about in this show, who need to be elevated before we start handing out top spots anyway. So
I agree. Miro's like 10th down on my list. Archer's ready to be a top guy before him.
Oh, yeah. Archer, Scorpio, Pac.
Yeah. Eddie Kingston came in, made himself a top, not the greatest worker in the world, talked himself into a top guy spot in a month. That's how you do it.
I don't disagree. That's definitely how you talk your way into a top spot.
Yeah. He did it.
Yeah,
they had great pay-per-view buys with a guy who never stepped in foot in WWE. A true indie veteran.
I didn't even think about that. This is true, though. He never has been in WWE at all.
No. He said he got a contract offer after he showed up on AEW, which is hilarious. But yeah.
Not surprising.
Not surprising at all. But like, you get an Eddie Kingston, you lose a Ben Carter. Yeah, c'est la vie. So like, no, I think it's Jon Moxley, man. Like he's, especially in North America.
Oh,
you know, in Japan, New Japan was shut down for such a long time that there's nobody at that. Like they gave it to Naito, Tokyo Sports, because he's the New Japan guy. I'm like, New Japan was shut down for like 6 months, and then when they came back, it wasn't very good. So, you know, it had to have been Shiozaki over there. But here, like, there's no top guy. And Roman was smartly on the shelf for most of the year. For his health, it was a good move.
Mm-hmm. He didn't have enough of a sample size. If he's done this all year, I might have went with Roman.
Oh, and I would have disagreed, but like I would have respected the argument.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, no, I definitely get it. You can't. There's no way you can overlook what Moxley was able to do, and I just don't know if anybody else would have been able to do that. Especially because Chris Jericho had a great run, so especially following that reign, I don't know if anybody else would have been able to really carry it and elevate it like Moxley did. No. He did a great job.
Nobody else was ready. You know,
that's the best way of putting it. Nobody else was ready for that. Not even Cody.
No, not even Cody. Cody, another one, reinvented himself since leaving WWE. Totally different guy. Yeah. He could. Cody could. I mean, Cody put himself in a weird situation where I guess he can't be, but whatever. You know, Jon Moxley had a great.
Yeah, he did. I think that's one of those things they're going to look back on like, yeah, we probably shouldn't have jumped the gun with that stipulation, but that's okay.
I'm looking at Twitter while I'm talking to you, and Brandon Cutler just took this gnarly bump. There's a GIF of him taking this gnarly bump off a chokeslam from Luchasaurus. I got to copy this and send it to you right now because I got to have you see this. I'm sending it in our. I'll send it in the chat. Please look at this right away.
Let's see what we got here.
It's gnarly. If you're listening to the show, I hope you've seen this. It's on Dark tonight.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Part of me is like, why did you do that? It's a choke slam.
Yeah, why did he was he supposed to flip out of it?
I have no idea. It looks like Brandon Cutler died. Taking that choke slam from Luchasaurus.
I mean, I've seen people flip out of it like that, you know, and they just completely rotate over the arm, but he...
Yeah, but you should. Yes.
Come on, Luchasaurus, you can't be doing that.
I don't blame Lucha. He didn't do anything. That's Cutler. Cutler took the bump. Like
you're right. It is on Cutler. You're right. And that's probably why it was so unimpactful, because Luchasaurus probably let him go like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, like, it's just a choke slam. It's a back bump. Like, he's flat back, and he's trying to do be like Kenny Omega and flipping out of everything. It's, ugh.
That's that Dolph Ziggler oversell.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Kota Ibushi, get yourself killed.
Oh, man. Well, we did it. We gave out a bunch of awards. I had to give a lot of praise to Jon Moxley. This has been a weird episode.
He deserved it this year.
No, he did.
He deserved it this year. Next year, you know, is a different story. This year was a weird year, and AEW made the right move, you know? And it's funny, everybody kept telling, every time he had a match, oh, this is the time to take it off him. This is the time to take it off him. And it wasn't. And we got when they did take it off him, it mattered. You know, too often belts change hands and they don't matter, which is one thing I respect with AEW is every title change has felt like it mattered, except for maybe the women's titles. But like, you know, that world title match when he beats Jericho, it was cool.
It was a moment.
It was a moment. I want to see. Now Drew's still the WWE champion, right?
Yes.
So they're gonna come. Man, I don't see anybody beating either him or Roman.
Well, actually, before that, he's facing Goldberg at the Royal Rumble.
Why do you tell me these things? Like, I'm in a good mood.
Well, that's why I waited to the end to tell you.
And I knew that, but I'd forgotten it because I blocked it. And again, I'm sitting here praising Keiji Muto, 50-some years old, can't move, 60-some years old, can't move. And but I know for a fact he's not going to beat Shiozaki. Like the fact, They might actually put the title on Goldberg again.
I know. And the no, they're not. They're not.
They can't.
They're
They
not.
can't.
No, they've done right by Drew as far as besides the Orton thing, and even that made sense because I mean, if you get thrown off a Hell in a Cell, at least you have an excuse for why you lost. But they've done right by Drew McIntyre as far as he's been protected. There's no way they're having Goldberg do this to Drew McIntyre of all people. There's no way.
They killed the Fiend with him. Like, this is what they do. Like,
there's no way Goldberg can go for this.
Oh, he'll go for this. That ego on Bill Goldberg.
Yeah, you're right. I'm giving him way.
You're talking about the guy who was reared by
Kevin.
Kevin. You're talking about the guy who was reared by Kevin Nash and Hulk Hogan.
Oh man.
Like,
God.
I mean,
dang it.
like, the reasonable booking or if this was reasonable company, I'd say, oh yeah, bring Goldberg in. You know, Drew's going to kill him. It's going to make Drew look great, make a star, right? That's what everybody should be thinking right now. But
especially at the Rumble, because you don't need a that match sells itself. So then that you just bring in a nice little,
makes sense.
Yeah, a title match like that where Drew's going to get put over. It makes perfect sense.
They've done it twice with Goldberg. They did it to Kevin Owens, and then they did it to the Fiend, the Bray Wyatt, and like.
I didn't mind the Kevin Owens ones as much because that actually led to a good match with Brock. So I didn't mind that one as much.
It did, but it's a match that didn't need the title.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't.
And it was Kevin Owens has really never been the same since then. Like again, I was in the crowd that night in Milwaukee, and people were not happy.
And like it would have been so easy just to have Brock come out and just lay Goldberg out for Kevin Owens to retain the title. It's just it would have made sense. Would have fit the story. They
did the opposite. They brought Jericho out, and then he lost the title that way.
Right, exactly.
But that was weird. That went really full circle with Jericho. Yeah.
Goldberg looks better than Jericho at 50. He's not as good of a worker, but he looks a lot better.
To be fair, Goldberg's always looked better than Jericho.
That's true. Goldberg he's a genetic freak.
Yeah, Goldberg is Bill Goldberg. I mean, like he's Bill Goldberg. Like he's always gonna.
He's a guy who's got it. Like he's somebody who just has something special about him.
I will tell you something. When he was, because again, I watched The Rise. I remember watching, him beat Hugh Morris and start that whole streak. That dude showed up on screen and grabbed people's attention from the first moment. He's always had
backflip.
Yeah, like he's always had it. They pushed him too early. They really did. Too hard, too early, and he wasn't quite ready for it, personally, but the crowd was ready for it. Again, the problem with WWE is they never knew how to follow anything up. Like, they get to these big moments, and then they'd be like, what do we do now? A cattle prod. That's the history of the company. It's just like weird decision after weird decision.
For Kevin Nash, of all people, to beat him, too.
Oh, boy, I could go on forever about that. Yeah. And again, Vince McMahon doesn't think any of his guys are as important as the dudes from the 90s. That's the problem. And that's why, my brain tells me, of course he's going to lose. Of course they're not going to put Goldberg over. Of course they're not. But, my fear is like, well, this is what Vince does. Legends are never used to build stars in this company anymore. Ever. They're always used to the Revival, that's what really pissed them off when they left. There's like they were treated like junk by some legends who weren't going to be around next week.
And it makes sense, man, especially when they're there, when the legends are there to put over already made guys, like Rock and Cena. I get doing it the one time, but then to do it again, I don't know.
Well, they were just milking it.
Right, they're just milking it. But the one time I get, that's a marquee matchup. You're not going to get those opportunities. You got to pull those triggers. I get that.
That match made sense. And again, Rock at the time and Cena at the time, and they didn't, quite frankly, they didn't have anybody. The year before, they had The Miz in the WrestleMania main event. And you can like The Miz all you want. Him in the WrestleMania main event didn't make sense then, doesn't make sense now, and he's proven himself to be not a main eventer.
No, he's right. He's upper mid card, but he's not a main.
He's upper mid card. He's right where he belongs. He never should have main evented WrestleMania. Not at that point in his career either. But I mean, like they've done a poor job of making stars, and then they have guys like Punk leave and become talent talent that gets attention in other places. They don't do a very good job of building people. They really don't.
The stars they do get are usually ones that are made out of spite. Punk, Daniel Bryan, Kofi.
Yeah,
even Kofi they didn't really want to push like that. They didn't. They were forced to.
Yeah. And again, they'll tell you this. Well, you make the decisions, and they go. But again, all three of them, they go with it for a while, and then they're done with it.
Yep.
Because again, I don't know what the future holds for Brian, because his contract is coming up this year. I guess he's doing stuff with the SmackDown creative team, which if he's helping with that, sweet, doing a good job. Does he want to? Because he was talking about before, but he wanted to have matches in CMLL. He wanted to do this. He wanted to do that. Does he want to do that, or is he happy being dad? And does he want to be done, or does he just want to be like in the executive office? I'm very curious to see what Bryan Danielson does in 2021, because he is a guy that is not utilized to his fullest right now.
He's someone you could very easily, and people would buy it. If he won the Royal Rumble, people would buy him and Roman Reigns and would be all for him.
I think he's kind of like, with this current roster, he reminds me of, he's like their version of Tanahashi. Like Tanahashi can lose matches, but it's almost unfair because Tanahashi is more like Cena, like as far as like what the company means. But like what I mean by is Tanahashi can lose a bunch of matches, but if tomorrow you told me Tanahashi was going to challenge Ibushi, everybody would be like, sweet, and it would sell a bunch of tickets. And
it's believable.
And it's believable. If Daniel Bryan tomorrow just walked on to SmackDown and said, I'm challenging Roman Reigns, everybody would be like, down, this is the greatest. Like he's got that. He's got that superstar quality, even though he's not treated like a superstar.
He's the ultimate. He's the ultimate babyface to me.
He really is. He really is. Like he's the ultimate. He is. He's the ultimate everyman babyface. Like he was the stuff that Jon Moxley did this year is stuff that Daniel Bryan should have done.
Yeah,
those type of babyface promos, the going around different territories and working these amazing matches, and leading a company on their back. That should be him, in my opinion.
Knocking down monsters as they come, because that's what Moxley was, knocking down monsters. Now that I think about it,
they gave him a Hogan run.
They did.
They really did.
Archer, Brody, Hager,
yeah. Cage.
I forgot about Cage.
Yeah,
yep.
Like he was MJF. Like he was, but he beat Wardlow's ass too. Like he was doing. Yeah, he great. That's something that I wish they'd have done with Daniel Bryan. And again, this year's not the best year to do it because his wife had another kid, and I don't know where his head is right now. Mm-hmm. 3 years ago when he came back, he seemed like, I can't wait to wrestle again. And now he seems to have the attitude, yeah, this is fun. It doesn't seem, again, being a dad does that. It changes your priorities. So that's why I'm very curious to see what happens to him this year.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy that we're gonna have to keep an eye on for 2021. There's a lot of people I'm looking forward to seeing what the year 2021 has in all companies. I'm sure there's going to be a breakout person we don't call, or it's going to be a guy that we expect to break out that does nothing. Shout out to Bronson Reed. Hopefully you have a better 21.
I thought Jungle Boy would be the guy to really break out this year. It doesn't happen. But you know what? They bought him Baltimore. I think they have big plans for him.
Yeah, he could be the project for this year. It seems like AEW is kind of like, all right, we're going to focus in on 2, maybe 3 people and really make sure by the end of this year they're at the next level.
Which is really how you should do it, because you can't push everybody at once. And again, like I said, Baltimore, they bought him the Tarzan Boy song. That was his song on the Indies, and they spent money. Like Tony spent money on. You know what song I'm talking about? The that song.
Oh wow! So they want people to sing that.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly the plan. Is like when arenas are full again, they want people chanting, like singing along to Tarzan Boy when Jungle Boy comes out. Because they will. That's absolutely going to happen. They did it at indie shows. They did it at PWG. Smart.
They just turned Shinsuke Nakamura back babyface and brought back his old music. So I wonder if they're planning on having fans back soon to sing with him too.
One of the greatest theme songs in pro wrestling history.
He should have never went. He should have never went heel.
Don't get me started.
Because I 100% agree with you. I think that is one of and I think even though I think Sami Zayn has one of the best babyface musics too.
I agree.
Heel, but that's
I agree.
whole
It
nother
works.
story as well.
He's annoying. It's ska. It works.
But
Sami
it's
Zayn's
great for babyface though.
It is. Oh, it's fantastic. Sami Zayn's a great babyface. Pretty damn good heel too. I got $5 as he's out when his contract is done.
Oh wow. I hope you're
one
wrong
guy-
because he's a guy that he's a guy that could get the crowd to get behind him with a year of great
Yes.
matches and stories.
Yes, I'm not sure when Sami Zayn's contract expires, but I've got sources. I don't know if they're any good, but I'm hearing rumblings that he's one guy that is like checked out, 1 foot out the door right now, but doing his job.
Well, there you go. JD, as always, it's a pleasure. We
Always good.
next time we talk, I don't know what we're going to talk about. We'll figure it out as we go.
We'll talk about it off the air because I got something for you.
Oh, even better. Tell everyone where to find you one more time before we go.
Find me on Twitter at JD_Oliva. You can read my work at Fight Game Media and at WrestleJoy. Fight Game Media, I'm going to be covering a lot of stuff from Japan, a lot of amateur wrestling stuff. I've got a big piece coming out this week that I'm really, really proud of. Probably the best thing I've ever written. I've also got something really cool coming out from WrestleJoy about my love for the Great Muta on Thursday that I'm excited about. So by the time this hits, both of those pieces will be live. And I'd love to hear people talk about them. Please hit me up at JD_Oliva at Twitter.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Need for Marvel vs. DC. You can follow this podcast at Showdown Pro on Twitter. For JD, I'm Regular Scott. We will talk to y'all next time. Peace.